Going to start recording here. I'm so happy to welcome you to a new fall in-service experience for SCVA. And I'm so glad that you guys are here and joining us. I would like to introduce our speaker for today for the first session. And I'm super excited to hear what she has to say. And her name is Angie. Doctor, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself, and then you can jump right in and share your screen and go for it.
Sure. Hi, all. Well, I know some of you, I can't see all of you, but hello. I've been in the vocal jazz world since, forever, since I was about 14. My experience initially was with Phil Matson. He was my mentor teacher, and I was part of the Phil Matson Singers originally. Um, and more recently, I've been teaching vocal jazz ensembles as an artist teacher for a long time. I do adjudicate jazz festivals. I perform professionally, except for, right now, like everyone else. And the latest group I was in the last 6 years of a group called the Bobs. So I've got a pretty varied experience as far as this stuff goes. As far as SoundTrap goes, I plunged into this just like everyone else did, this online thing last semester. I teach a class at the California Jazz Conservatory for the vocal majors and also in the jazz school for the community. And I just dug in. I figured this stuff out trial by fire, and I decided to document as much as I could learn and share. I really feel like sharing information is really important so that not everybody has to start at ground zero. So that's my approach to all this. Today, what I'm going to do is give you some basics for setting up SoundTrap for students, should you choose to use it. And I will walk you through the menus and a demo of the recording field and what SoundTrap is. And then we'll take some questions. Feel free to post anything in chat. I know Rochelle's going to moderate that, and Christine Mocha, my dear friend. Please prompt me as you have when we walk through stuff together, and that will help clarify things. There's a lot more that you can do with SoundTrap than what I'm going to present to you today, but this is the recording basics and how the program works, basically, that you can apply to other teaching situations. And I'll show you how to get to other tutorials as well. So that said, let's jump in. So the big difference between what SoundTrap or BandLab as well is, as compared to a digital audio workstation like Logic Pro or Studio One or GarageBand, is that it's web-based. So it's a streaming service. Therefore, it's completely reliant on your internet connection. So there are some things that are good to do to give your computer as much power as it can to prevent latency when you're recording and playing back things. So the first thing they suggest is that you use Chrome as your browser. The program was developed with Chrome, so it's most reliable in that it does work in Firefox. I've used it successfully in Firefox. It can be a little glitchy in other browsers as well. So it's just recommended to use Chrome. And by the way, everything that I'm saying here, I've put in PDF documents that Rochelle has, and she'll share that with you as well. And I have a couple of quick start documents that I'll show you at the end of my presentation that are also included. So use Chrome. Other suggestions are empty the cache, clear the cache in your browser, C-A-C-H-E, because a lot of megabytes just hang out there. Empty the trash on your computer, close all the other programs on your computer, and close as many tabs as you can. Today, I've got Zoom running clearly at the same time as I will be using SoundTrap, and I've got Acrobat open to show you some things. So when I record something for you, you're going to see that there's a little lag, and I'll show you what you can do with that. All right. That said, we're going to jump in. You and your students need a computer. This program works also on tablets and phones. It works best on a computer. You need headphones because, as in any, this is a collaborative recording space, a collaborative project space. So anytime you record, you want to have headphones of some kind on so that there's no bleed from the room. These are closed back headphones. They're a little pricey, but they're really great. You can get other headphones that are around $15–20, Sony JVC. They work just fine. And in a pinch, you can use your phone headphones that have the mic on it, but you will get bleed from them because there's no protection from it. But students can use that in a pinch as well. Wireless earbuds are not good. There's more of, it has to travel through space on Bluetooth, and noise canceling headphones aren't good either. When we use headphones for this program, using a microphone is the best quality. Now, I also understand that not all students are going to be able to have a microphone, so the computer internal mic is okay too. In which case, you want to plug your headphones either into the microphone you're using. This is a Blue Yeti USB mic. If you have an audio interface with an analog mic, you plug your headphones into the audio interface, or if someone's using the computer internal mic, plug it into the computer. All right, let's go to SoundTrap. I will share my screen here and my computer sound. Okay, here we are. This is the home page. And on this page, you'll see there's a menu bar. This is your project page. Anything that you create in the studio will end up here. And you can see there's some, this is my demo. You can download the MP3 mix from here. You can create assignments from here, which creates separate instances of your SoundTrap page for students. Say you're doing solo projects and stuff like that. And you can enter the studio here. The three dots have the same kind of menu as you'll find throughout this thing. So that's my projects. My groups, which I'll come right back to. EduAdmin, as a teacher or an owner, you will have this page. Students will not see this. This is where you import your users. If you're an owner, you'll be able to change the preferences and the permissions. I will show you that page a little bit later. This is lesson plans that are some suggestions from the SoundTrap people. You can change subjects, you can change age groups. There's some really great, let's see if I can move this down, ideas here, which I won't go into today, but it's really worth perusing. And then there's a really good resources tab. Here you can see those same, you can always go back to this menu. It's got how-tos and course ideas, classroom ideas, all kinds of things to use as tutorials. So, how do we do this? As a teacher, how do you get your students into SoundTrap with you? So what you were going to do first is you're going to start by creating a group. And how you do that is actually quite simple. You go to My Groups. You click on, this is my jazz school ensemble that I just did. You create a group. You name it. I'm going to call this Demo Ensemble. If I can spell. I can't spell today. Add me to this group. Yes, you want to do that. And just create it. And now it's there. And you'll see you have an invite code here. You have some actions. You can rename it or delete it. Now to add your students, there are two ways to do it. One way is to go up here to EduAdmin and import your users. This happens to be all the jazz school people. I'm not going to import them into my project. And then they're here, and this is where you can assign them roles. You put their names in, and you can add them to a group that you've created. This is kind of handy if you have more than one group. You can create groups. We'll come back to this. You can create groups for period 1, period 2, period 3. You can put all your students in one group and then add them to separate projects.
Angie, we have a quick question.
Sure.
Is the group feature available in the free version, or is this the paid?
It is available in the free version. Everything is available in the free version. It just has a time limit.
And it's 30 days usually?
Yeah, currently they're doing a 30-day trial. When I joined last March, they had a 120-day trial. So
Mm.
that was, hello, doggy.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right. That's what happens at home, right? So yes, this is all there. So there's an invite code. So the easiest way to add your students is once you've created your group, just click on your group here. There you see me. I'm the only one in there so far. And click Add User. And this window has a really great explanation. There's 3 different ways to add students. You can see here's my demo ensemble. Here's the invite code. You can simply copy this link and give it to your students. It has explanations here, and it's got some more info. If you click the More Info tab or link here, that will take you to the SoundTrap FAQ page and the community, and there's a lot more information and the details on how to add students with this, upload through CSV file, and integrate into things like Google Classroom and Canvas. So I'm not going to invite anybody today, but that's how you would do it. So going back to the home page, let's get into a project. When you're starting and you want a completely blank project, you simply enter the studio. To save time for today, I've created a demo, so I've already gone there and imported tracks, and I will show you how to do it. So here's my project. I'm going to click Studio. It gives you that little loading smiley face, sad face. And this is your workspace. I am going to show you with an ensemble piece. It doesn't matter if the imported things are just a rhythm section or if it's a blank slate and you're going to create loops or do other projects with it. It's the same page for everything. Okay, so these are tracks that I have imported already, and the way I did it, when you see a blank page, all you see is this blank Add New Track at the very top, and this whole space will be empty. You can see down here there's some grayed out things. These are also quick starts. This Add New Track is the very same thing as this one over here. This import file is the same as this. So how I created this window so far is I had guide tracks already and a rhythm section track for an ensemble piece, a vocal jazz ensemble piece. I imported those in simply by clicking Import File. I chose some files. It's not these. You can import multiple files at the same time. And once I imported them in, they're here. You can change the colors of all these tracks too. I'll show you the track headers in a moment. And the first thing I did is I made sure that the tempo, which is here, let's see if my window went down just a little bit. Come back. This tempo, I know that this file is 98 beats per minute. It defaults to 120 beats per minute, and unless you don't care about the ruler at the top, it won't change the tempo if this says 120. It will just change the ruler bar at the top and where that lands. And why that's important is because when it's in the correct tempo with your files, these numbers correspond to measure numbers in your piece.
Angie, we have another great question.
Sure.
We're wondering, Angela's wondering, where did you originally put together your files? Like, where do they come from?
My files I made in Studio One, which is the DAW, the digital audio workstation I use, like GarageBand or Logic Pro, because I was preparing for a summer class. You can get, this is an MP3 rhythm section track that I bought with this chart. This happens to be Matt Falker's arrangement of You're So High, You're So Low. So I got that from him. You can create rhythm section tracks or guide tracks on your own, or you can purchase them from the arrangers. A lot of arrangers now, Carrie Marsh, Matt Falker, many others have guide tracks you can use. Or you can just put a rhythm section track in there. Or if you're doing something a cappella, you can just use a metronome.
Okay. So let's say, for example, if we got something for choral tracks and we want the kids to record that on top of that, we could import that MP3 and then
Yes,
have them sing with it.
absolutely. You can import
Awesome.
MP3s, WAV files, and MIDI files
Thank you so
into the
much.
program. Sure. Okay, so I'm going to come back to what this is, what the track headers are, and recording in a moment. I'm going to walk you through this window to show you the different tools that are in this window and how to use them. So first we're going to go to the bottom, and you can see the plus and minus signs down at the bottom. This is your zoom in, zoom out. I'm going to zoom in. Sometimes you want to see those wave files a little bit bigger. Unlike other digital audio workstations, this is what you see. You really can't zoom in the same way as you can in a standalone product. But that's okay. Mostly what you see here, if you see these single dots, that's blank space. Anyway, you can see the wave files. The more you zoom in, you'll see up here, you can see more of the ruler too. I'm going to come back to the ruler in a moment. The other way to change the size of your tracks is you can hold, if I'm in a Mac, so I'm going to hold down Command. If you're in a PC, you can hold Control and use your arrows to change the size of the tracks this way. You'll see as they get smaller, you lose the details in these tracks, but if you have a lot of tracks there, maybe you want to make them smaller, or maybe you just want to see them really fat and big. That's your choice. Okay, I'm going to go up to the top now to the ruler bar. As I said, if you zoom in, you can see more detail in the ruler bar. You can see the ticks in between. These are measure numbers because my tracks correspond to a certain beats per minute. If you come over to the right here to this little gear, these are your grid settings for your ruler bar. And it's a little limited. I usually leave it on automatic grid size. It tends to work fine for me. You can go in and experiment and see what these look like for you. They are limited to 3/4 or 4/4 in time signature. So if you have a mixed meter song or you have recorded rhythm tracks or things that are not in exact tempo, you can change your ruler to time and navigate that way. I'm going to put it back to beats for my project. This grade area here, if I click on it, it turns purple. That's a loop. You can see this is highlighted. It's the cycle mode. If you want to loop a section of your project, you turn that on. You simply click it and make it light gray to turn it off. You can change the size of it by clicking, holding, and dragging either side, and that's what that is. So sometimes if you're in your project and it's like, why does it keep looping? Look at your bar and see if this is enabled and just turn it off.
Okay, Angie, have another question related to tempo adjustment, and I hope that if I'm asking too many, if I'm bringing things up, please let me know.
Totally fine. It's
Okay,
totally fine.
so the question is from Rich. Can the tempo adjust to fractions or decimals of the beats per minute?
No, it's their whole.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
And while we're here, just something about tempo. If these are audio files, so the audio files are not going to adjust to changing the tempo. If you have MIDI files in here, they will adjust. And you can also change the key of MIDI files here, down at the bottom. But you can't change the keys of these, and you don't really want to. Okay, now back up to the top. There are a couple more things here I want to show you. This little magnet button is called Snap to Grid. Your grid is determined by your ruler bar. When it's on, that means that your cursor, that's this, is going to snap into each one of those ticks. The further you zoom in, the more subdivisions you're going to have. So that can be helpful. See, they're very gray and very light for those of us who can't see it very well. Also, what it does is you can drag different audio files. If it's snap to grid, your audio file is also going to snap to those ticks. You can turn it off. So in case, I'm going to make this a little smaller, in case I want to put my cursor to start somewhere like right here, those are in between beats. I can smoothly put my cursor there. I can smoothly move any tracks when snap to grid is off. It's your choice, whatever's handy for you. Now I'm going to go to the bottom of the screen and show you a few things here. So we've already talked about the tempo. To change it, you can just click it. You can type it in. You can use the plus or minus buttons. You can do a tap as well if you want to. Works okay. It's not perfect, but it works okay. And that's there. This right here is the metronome settings. And you can see, I don't know if you can see that as I hover over each one of these, anything on this page, it gives me a prompt as to what it is, which is kind of handy. So I have my metronome off because I have a rhythm section. I would turn it on if I was doing something that was a cappella, or if I had a section in a song that with rhythm section drops out and I still want to hear the time, I would just simply turn that on. The gear next to it is the metronome settings. You can change the sound. Okay, and then we can stop. Hello, stop. Back to metronome settings, you can change the volume. Now the volume knob here and all the volume knobs work the same. Click and hold, drag it up to turn it up, drag it down to turn it down. It took me a little bit to find that, to figure that out when I first started working in this. And this count-in is set to 2 bars. That means that there's going to be a pre-roll count of 2 measures, so 8 beats. Wherever you start, there will be 8 beats. At the beginning, there'll be 8 beat count in, a 2-bar count in. If I start in the middle of a track, say I want to punch in or I want to start here, it will pre-roll for 2 bars or 8 beats before. And then if I'm recording, the recording will engage where my cursor is. It's kind of handy because you can hear what's coming. Okay. Other things down here, here's your transport, just like any transport, play, rewinds a little bit. This goes back to the beginning. Here's your record button. This is fast forward. This right here is the time in your piece. You can see as I drag the cursor forward, the time changes. So that's kind of handy if you want to know where you are time-wise in your project. And this is the master volume for your project. Okay? Going up to the top, let me show you what's up here. Here's your menu bar. Pretty simple. File, you can see what's here. Previous versions are very handy if you need to grab a track and export it and re-import it into your project. Say somebody accidentally records over something or something disappears. That will happen. The handy thing is there's all kinds of previous versions and they're all time-stamped.
May I ask a question about that?
Of course.
So if you go back to a previous version, can you jump to any previous version, or is then like you go back to previous version 10 and we lose all 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16?
Yes, so that's a really good question. I just actually had that question this morning from a friend of mine in North Carolina. You can open any previous version. If you save one of those or restore one of those previous versions, you're going to lose everything that you just did. So really the best thing to do is open a previous version. I'll do it for you. Let me open this one. And let's say, do I wish to save changes before closing? I'm going to say don't save because I haven't made any changes that I want to save, but you could say, yes, I want to save those changes. So you have your current version saved. This is going to open a previous version. My version looks exactly like the one we just looked at. But let's say there were other tracks in here. And let's say the soprano track had disappeared or somebody accidentally recorded over the alto track in my current version. I would simply go to a previous version where that alto track is still there, export it. It will export as a WAV file. I will exit the studio without saving it. She said, come on. And then I'm going to go back to my home page and re-enter my current version. And
Okay.
then I can import that track into my project. That's a great way to save a track that's been destroyed or deleted accidentally or accidentally recorded over.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so that's the file menu there. Export in the file menu means you're going to export the entire project. You'll see when I went to the previous version, I clicked on a track header, and that will export a single track. In Edit, this is grayed out right now because we're not using, well, let me do this. If I enable a track, if I click on one of the colored tracks, I can see the Edit menu, and it has these handy shortcuts right here, pretty self-explanatory. I'll come back to that. Settings. Here's a very important thing to know. Monitoring enabled is a default, and you're going to want to turn that off because when you go to record on a track, all you're going to hear is delay. You want to disable it. You want it to look like this, monitoring off. Another thing is if you find that you have a lot of latency, for some reason things are just dragging or something, go to sound quality and turn it to low. Change it to low. That will help just save CPU power. And then tutorials. This is a great place to go to the SoundTrap FAQ page and SoundTrap community where there's lots of things to explore, and you can find a lot of answers there as well. Over here, previous versions, you can access there. Your save button, very important. When there's something to save, it will turn purple, just like this. This is where you save. You can save here, and you can go to File, Save when there's something to save. There's no shortcut for save in this program. You can't do Control S or Command S. You have to save it with the button. And you can download your mix here. Here is where, when you first enter your project, name your project something, or else you'll have a whole bunch of projects called Untitled Project, which is not very helpful. And when you want to exit your studio, you're going to save and then exit studio here. Okay, now let's go over to the track headers. These are track headers. I've already created one audio file here. I'm going to show you how to do that in a moment. First, I'm going to walk you through what the tools are on the track header, starting from left to right. This is the instrument that shows their preferences for your track, whatever they are. You can always get to these preferences by clicking. This little R is enable or disable your record mode for your track. This is the volume knob for each track, and again you click and you can see little grayed out arrows up and down. You go up to turn up the sound, down to turn down the sound. This little headphone button is a solo, so you can solo your track, and it's kind of really handy if you want to record just yourself in the rhythm section. You don't have to go through and mute all the other 500 tracks that are there. You can just solo what you want to hear. It's also really good if you have a bunch of students recording things and you want to just hear so-and-so with the rhythm section track, and then you can export that as an MP3 and hear just those two tracks.
Okay, we have another question quickly.
Sure.
Sarah, her account, which is a paid educational version, doesn't give her the choice to change the monitoring sections or settings. It's grayed out and it says unavailable. Do you have any advice for that?
Yeah, that probably has to do if you make sure you plug your headphones into your mic into your computer before you open SoundTrap and see if that changes it. It also depends on what she's using. Sarah, can you tell Rochelle what you're using as an input?
Input meaning?
What are you using, a microphone or an audio interface?
I have a USB microphone.
Okay, is it so? I would try first backing out of SoundTrap, plugging the mic in, turning it on and then re-entering SoundTrap and seeing if that troubleshoots that. I've had a couple of students where that's happened. That worked with one student. Another one had an audio interface that had it was a Scarlett Solo, and there was actually something that we had to go troubleshoot on the Scarlett website in order to get it to work.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so back to the track header. Mute, self-explanatory. This little squiggly line with the dots, that's an automation. Your students, you won't really need to access this while you're recording, but what this is, if you click in the automation square here, you have the choice of pan, sweep, and volume. And what you can do with that is you can change the pan here. You can drag it up and down, right and left that way. You can, I'm going to delete that. You can, when you're doing a mix in SoundTrap, if you're mixing in SoundTrap and there are like places in your track where you want to bring the volume down, you can do that and automate it. So every time it plays, that's what automation is. So for the most part, if your students are recording in there, you're not going to need to use that, but that's what that is. And then the one other thing on a track header are these three little dots. These are your track options. And this will give you, you can duplicate a track, which is very handy. Say you're recording, you've recorded a take, you want to do another take, but you want to preserve your track. If you click duplicate track, it's going to give you a copy of your track with the same settings right below your track. So if there are 10 singers in here, each singer who wanted to duplicate a track, that would be right underneath their master track. And you can do as many of those as you need. You can delete a track. You can freeze a track. You can freeze one track. And what that means is just freeze it. It gives you more CPU power, but you can only do one track. So say your rhythm track has a lot of, it's just a really big MP3 or something. You could freeze that. It's not permanent and it doesn't lock it. So one question I've had a lot is, can you lock tracks? You cannot lock tracks, which is, you know, you're doing a collaborative space, which is why somebody could record over your track or delete your track or move things around. So just to be aware of that. Frozen doesn't mean anything other than it takes some of the power away, so it's not streaming any longer, but it's still there. And you can unfreeze it too. It doesn't matter if it's frozen, but only one track can do that. Okay, moving on.
Angie?
Yes.
Quick question, since we're talking about freezing and moving tracks. I moved the stems at where the microphone is to the left, and we were working on a project with 60 students. I moved them and I dragged them over other people's recordings. Is there a way to drag them without doing that if you want to, for instance, put the sopranos all together and the altos?
Yes, you can. You can. So the way you drag a track, let's say I wanted to put the alto solo up by the rhythm section. I'm going to click and hold and just drag it up like this. And it's just going to scoot everything else down. It's not going, did you, Christine, did you click on these colored tracks to drag them up?
No, I actually dragged where you did, and I must have done something wrong. That's where the previous save came in for me.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, you could also do this. Oops, I dragged it there. It's not where I wanted it, or I did something. You can undo. You can undo it. As long as you don't save, you can undo anything. You can also see undo up here. It'll have, I don't know how many instances it'll do. Would that help?
Yes.
Okay, cool. One other thing in the three dots in the track options, this is where you go to export your track. It will export as a WAV file and save it to your computer. You can also change the colors of any tracks, which is really helpful. I had a project where all of a sudden there were like 4 dark blue ones in a row, and visually somebody would thought that was their track because it was the same color as the tracks around them. So it's just a nice visual option to be able to do that. All right, so that's with the track headers. I'm going to come back to how to add a track in and what that is in a moment. There's one more thing on this window that I want to show you is really kind of cool and important. Off to the far right, you'll see this little purple circle with the music notes in it. When you click on it, these are loops, and there's a whole bunch of tutorials and lessons that can show you how to use them. They're very cool. You can see there's all kinds of instruments here. Students can create loops. You can also do things like fade in. Oops, that's not what I'm going to do. Where's my fade in? Bing, bing, bing. Fade in. You can do this on the other side to fade out. You can create music this way really fast. And these are, you can click the little heart to make it a favorite. You can preview anything here. Very, very handy and very interesting for the kids. And it's a really great first lesson. So if you go into tutorials and search for loops, you can see all kinds of information on this option. This little person circle here is a really great window. You can invite your students in here to collaborate with your project. So you've already created your groups. You can invite anybody who's in your groups into this window. Right now you only see me, but you will have multiple little smiley face dots that go across, and as you hover over them, you can see who they are as well. And this is a chat window. It's a live chat window. I can't activate it because nobody else is in my project right now, but I know Christine Mocha has been using it a lot in hers, and students can ask questions right here and you can answer them. Over here it's grayed out a little bit, but this is a video call. You can do a live video call or video chat with one other person. Right now it's unfortunately not the whole class, but you can do a live video call if you want to do it that way as well. The other thing that happens in this window, and one of the reasons I started using SoundTrap is the feature of everyone in the class can work on the project at the same time. And you won't overwrite someone when you save. What happens, say Christine and I are working at the same time, and I've done some things here. She can't see what I'm doing. I can't see what she's doing until I save. And when I save, what she's going to see is a little ding. She's going to hear a ding, and it's going to pop and say, Angie has updated her project. And there will be another button that pops up that says sync. So what she's going to do is she's going to save her project, and she's going to click sync, and then she'll be able to see what I did. So it does prompt you to do that. And I know there's going to be questions about this.
So Angie,
yes.
I just want to let you know that we have about 10 minutes left.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Here, Angie, let's do this together. Why don't we walk
Yes.
the 7 steps for doing the new track? Go
Perfect. So add a track. Here's what we do. We choose voice and microphone. You want to change some things here. These are presets. It defaults to computer mic enhancer. You want to go here and choose dry so there's no effects on your voice track. You're going to go here. This is your input. Click on that. This is defaults to my Yeti microphone. You can choose internal microphone or anything else that you're plugged into for recording. And then you're going to click this. Very handy volume check. You're going to do a test. Summertime and the living is easy. And it's going to set it and say done. You can always redo it. That helps to keep from clipping and overdriving your thing. And then you're ready to start recording. You're going to go to your new track. Excuse me. You're going to click on this and rename it. We'll rename it with part and my name. That's not my name, but that's what it is for now. And then I'm going to click and drag it to the top because that's where I want it. You can put your tracks wherever you want it. And then when I go to record for the first time, I can always go back here if I need to. I'm going to click the little R to engage the track. And it's going to ask me if I'm using headphones. Yes, I'm using headphones. And turn off the monitoring. It will go by default. It will turn on. You need to turn it off. Volume's fine. Let's say I want to record. I want to hear my track. I want to hear the rhythm track. and I want to hear alto, tenor, bass. I'm not going to mess with, ooh, I just made that a little bigger. And I'm ready to record. I'm going to turn these down just a little bit because I know that they're loud. And then I know that there's some backgrounds at measure 19. That's where I want to start. I know that the backgrounds, I happen to know that they start on beat 2. So I'm going to put my cursor right on measure 19. If it started on the downbeat, I might put my cursor a little before. I click this. I hear 8 beats ahead of it. And then do 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 ba do day. And I stop, it processes it, and there's my new recording. A couple other things you can do quickly. If you want to edit this track, you can split the track. I know that the split region is Command E. I can click on something and delete it if I don't want it. If I delete something in my track and I want to bring it back, all I have to do is adjust it and drag it over. If I want to loop something, I click on that little swirly thing and drag it over. I can always undo by Command Z.
And Angie,
Yes.
let's say the beginning is not exactly locked where you want it to be. How do you move it? And is there an auto latency adjust?
There's no auto latency adjust, but you can, like this is going to be a little bit behind because I have zoom on. And I happen to know in my guide tracks that the beginning of the waveform is there. Now I'm in snap to grid, so I'm going to want to undo that so that I can smoothly put my cursor where I want my waveform to start. And I'm just going to click on this and I'm going to drag it over a little bit. That's how you can kind of combat some of that latency. That's how you can move, just click and drag. And if I wanted it to snap, it'll snap into those ticks.
So we have a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
Justine used this, and the question is, if I can read it because I'm old, she didn't want to get in the weeds with editing, but assumed she'd be able to make small adjustments in individual tracks if a person a little late or a little person is off. So let's mute them for a beat or two. Or the girl has got a great voice but is too quiet. This is where she got stuck, and it does not seem that you can fuss with stuff like that, or can you?
You can do a little bit. When I edit, I actually export the tracks and edit and mix in a different program. But let's say this part right here it's really out of tune and I just want to silence it. I'm going to split my track so that I can just isolate that bit and take my snap off so I can get in between the beats. I can click this. If I do Control and click, I can mute that region. So I don't necessarily have to delete it, but I can just mute it. You could also tuck things. That would be if you're mixing, you can go to the automation and say I want to bring the volume down for this part right here. I could click this and bring it down.
Awesome.
So that's a way to do it. What else? What other questions? I know there's questions. Okay, let me show you something. I'm going to stop sharing this screen and I'm just going to show you 2 documents that I have in the packet that Rochelle's going to give you that I made that I think will be very helpful for you. This is a quick start document and it's everything we just did for adding a new track, and we remind you of what to do. And then I have a troubleshooting document about latency. What happens? Oh, my track is late. Check these things. If you use an Ethernet connection, plugging into Ethernet, if you can, instead of Wi-Fi, it's going to be a lot more stable. Just to let you know, I can't do it. My Ethernet's down on the first floor, so I can't access it. But for the most part, I have a pretty good experience using Wi-Fi in SoundTrap. Of course, with Zoom on, everything's late, but that's where you go to closing all your stuff. And here's someone accidentally recorded or deleted tracks, some hints on what you can do. And what we just did was clicking on a track, holding it, and scooting it. and here's where the previous versions are.
Amazing. We need to give her all, Angie, huge jazz hands.
Thank you
That
all.
was spectacular. I know there's some more questions out there. We have a few more minutes. So
Great.
if anyone
Michelle?
wants to, yes.
Angie, do you want to show the Music First interface?
Yeah, so Christine has a really great thing that she can share that has to do with Music First and SoundTrap that would be really helpful to you.
Am I able to share my computer screen?
You are.
Okay, let me try. It's actually not letting me. Let's check it again. Oh, no, I think it's going to let me now.
Okay.
So Music First actually incorporates most of the software, not all of it. I'm not quite sure it has NoteFlight, but I think you can purchase that separately. And if you log in here, it's gonna let me, there we go. You can actually have all your classes in here, and you can download it through a CSV file where they can access all of their software. There's Flat for Education. Now these are just the ones that I purchased: Flat for Education, Sight Reading Factory, and SoundTrap. And the reason why I chose to get this is I just didn't want to grade 3 different things. So here, all of this can be graded and kept in a file, and it incorporates into Google Classroom. And the interface just looks a little bit different than if you just purchase SoundTrap by itself. SoundTrap, I believe, is $4 per seat. Music First has different pricing depending on what you want to get. But my students have been able to log on to Music First and get the assignment directly that also incorporates into Google Classroom. It's just an easier interface if you're using multiple programs. And just like Angie said, the collaboration on the side, we have 88 people on this project. It works in real time, but it is, there's a big learning curve. So just make sure you know that previous save button pretty well. But anyways, that is the Music First Classroom. There's a lot of resources that they just give you with the classroom. And if you're interested more in that, you can actually go to their website and check it out. Anyway, that's it.
Thank you, Christine.
Rochelle, I would like to, I know there's going to be a lot more questions, and that you clearly can go much deeper into SoundTrap and what it offers. If you want to collect questions and send them to me, I'll be happy to answer them for you.
Okay.
If I can.
Okay. So Cynthia, she's asking about the time frame for the 30-day trial. I think that if Christine mentioned, actually, Christine, why don't you answer that question, because
Sarah Anders and I just had this issue because we were working on a project together, and somehow our 2 schools got conjoined. So we had to email and get it separated. They were able to extend the trial another 30 days for us. Because I had issues with just the 50 seats, they gave me an extra 75. So if you ask, they'll give it to you, especially if you intend to purchase.
I found that the support has been really great. You can't call someone, but they do get back to you, and they helped me out greatly with some questions that were, troubleshooting as well. They seem to be very friendly.
Okay, so we want to do a couple screenshots, if you guys don't mind. So if you would be so kind as to just turn on your faces, and I have 3 pages of us, so we're going to do 3 screenshots. And here's the first page, so everyone smile. And now I'm moving to the second page, which we don't really know who we are, right? But everyone smile. 1, 2, 3. Oh, wait, people are turning. There we go. And we're going to do it again. And the third page, everyone still smile. Elizabeth, Lisa Lopez, I love your emoji. So as a closing statement, before we say thank you again to Angie, because our minds are all blown, I would just like to let you know that the plan was to record this, and it says it's recording. So I will let you know how it's processed and where you can find it, and where you can find all the attached PDFs. And if you guys could just unmute your microphones or do a big, huge thank you to Angie. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
And we will see you all in about 7 minutes. And Brian is going to join us and explain a little bit more. He's got lots of tips and tricks, I can tell. So we'll see you in a few minutes. Yay.
Yay, Angie.
Yay.
Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, Angie.
You're welcome. Can I just hang out and watch Brian's?
Of course.
It's always helpful. I just, information sharing is just,
Of course.
yeah, fabulous.
Brian, you need to talk about your mic system. Have you used it yet?
Yeah, I piloted it this week. I ran some rehearsals this week, and it is way better than I ever thought it could have been.
I'm
Fabulous.
so excited to hear about it.
In fact, I may continue, even when we go back to in-person, I may keep the system in place.
Wow.
It's too easy for me as an educator. I hear everything so much clearer. So my kids were 12 feet apart. I had consulted with one of the booster parents, actually. He's head of infectious diseases at the Children's Hospital here in Long Beach, so he was my consultant. Basically, I just said, what do I need to do to make this acceptable? He says, well, if you put kids 12 feet apart, all facing the same direction, outdoors, and kids are never sharing mics, that's kind of the, I had to spend money to buy mics, but so each kid has been loaned a microphone for the year, much like a textbook or concert attire. And everyone's got those belt packs that I wrote about. So I'm actually writing up a follow-up white paper, kind of like an explanatory document of, if you'd like to do this, this is exactly what works. But it worked out I almost cried. I was just like, this is amazing. Because I wasn't sure how it was going to work out practically with kids that have never used in-ear monitors, but every single one of them was just like, this is amazing. I love this.
Do that. We got to do that.
That's so great.
Do you use the lighting? So you're not using the lighting dock to clean because everybody has their own microphones. Is that right?
Yeah, so I don't even need that yet. I'll use that once we get to performances. And, whenever we do get to performances, I'm going to assume we're in a better situation with COVID, but I still plan to disinfect the microphones in between acts. It just means my three groups that use mics have to be at the beginning, 20 minutes of music, another group, 20 minutes of music, and then one group's got to close. So,
wow, you're a genius.
I love nerdy stuff. That's me. I love technology. I love using anything with electricity to solve problems.
Well, we're gonna do it if you're really happy with it and the kids are happy with it.
Beyond happy.
We're just not allowed to meet yet, but I'm excited.
Yeah, we met off the books. Our booster club sponsored it. And because the district's still very strict about nothing, nothing. But our coaches are still meeting outside of school hours. So, and I feel like I did my due diligence in terms of consulting with medical professionals and really going beyond the 6 feet norm. And, most of my kids were singing with masks still on, which is another discussion too. So I feel like we were abundantly cautious.
Well, looking forward to your presentation soon.
Yeah, I'm going to get some coffee real quick, everybody.
In a bit.
Okay, everyone, it's 10 o'clock. Yay! And learned just so much from Angie. So thank you, Angie, again. I would like to introduce Brian. Is it Brian? I actually don't know this answer. Is it Dokko?
Yes,
Okay.
first try.
Awesome. Woohoo. And he gets to teach outside today, which I love. So welcome to Brian, and we're super excited. Let us know a little bit about yourself and then jump right in. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, I'm outside because I have 3 little children, and this and my car are the only places where there's any peace and quiet in my life. So I'm outside in the 89% humidity. First off, thank you, Angie. You'll see that a lot of what I'm going to talk about parallels what she's covered because the platforms are actually exceptionally similar. And if you've played with any other DAWs, DAWs, digital audio workstations, you'll see that it's kind of like a car. There's different cars, but they all have a transmission. They all have a gas pedal. They have a steering wheel, but sometimes they're in a different location. So that's kind of the analogy I give with all these software platforms. They're very similar. I'm going to share a document right now in the chat. I'm pretty sure Rochelle said she would make this available, but if you want to follow along, like if you've got multiple screens or a way to follow along, I just thought I'd throw that there. But there's a couple of documents that I'm going to make available to everybody once this is done. And I'll do my best to see what's going on in the chat too. But since so much of this stuff is similar, I did want to dedicate more time to questions since I don't want to just say, all the wonderful things that Angie just said. But so it starts off with just this one thing I did want to read. BandLab is an online cloud-based DAW or digital audio workstation that uniquely allows users to collaborate on projects from their own location without the need for dedicated recording hardware, all for free. That is the biggest difference between SoundTrap and BandLab. It can be used as your only recording software, or it can be used what your students use while you pull stems or the individual track files into another DAW like Logic, Digital Performer, Pro Tools, Ableton, whatever you do. And that's what I do, and I'm going to explain that process later. It's particularly good for us for 2 reasons. It's well suited for creating new music, utilizing the free library of samples and loops. For example, I've got 2 groups that focus on contemporary music, and they spend a lot of time, making their own beats, writing their own music, in other words. And then it works well both at recording ensemble parts as well as solo projects and assignments. Now, full disclaimer, I started using BandLab in last August. I don't even know how I found out about it, but I saw this wonderful platform and I started phasing it in for use for my contemporary music groups. And then I realized the transition between that and COVID lockdown was perfect. So I just started integrating all my choirs to that. But the disclaimer is we are moving to SoundTrap because in my humble opinion, it is the superior program. It does everything that BandLab can do and then some. And as I'll discuss, there's one main flaw, if I can call it a flaw, in BandLab that SoundTrap does not have, which is the whole reason we're moving over. But like I said, if your school is in a situation where there's 0 budget, then BandLab's your go-to. But if you can afford the license if you're doing just BandLab, it's about $5 per kid. But I know a lot of districts like ours is bundling it with all those other programs and whatnot. So let's get started, shall we? And again, I did want to dedicate more of our time today with questions. So I'm not going to go through every little thing. Okay. So if you see here, this is the big, actually, you know what? I should back up. So when you first log in, you'll see this. And in the PDF that I just sent through, or the Google Doc, it covers everything that's actually in a YouTube video that I put together back in, I don't remember, earlier in the spring when I had a lot of my colleagues asking, how do I BandLab? So instead of doing the same lesson, 40 times, I just put a video together and that actually covers everything that's in this. So it talks about what all the, where everything is, what these things do. So I'm not going to talk about that unless you specifically ask a question about that, because I'm just going to try and be a little bit more efficient with the time and say, check that out on your own time, but then we can kind of go with this. But I'm going to kind of gloss through this quickly. So there's a couple of ways, and this is very similar to SoundTrap. You can create a song based on virtual instruments. There's a drum machine. There's using your microphone, built-in microphone. And as I'll talk with later, all of last spring was done exclusively with built-in microphones. A couple of my kids had external microphones, but Most kids just use their phone or their laptop. If you have the appropriate interface, you can also connect guitar or bass or any instrument for that matter into BandLab. Oh, I forgot to say this. You can also import audio and MIDI, just like you could with SoundTrap. And then BandLab has a rather impressive library of free loops, and they're all royalty free apparently. So I keep asking myself how this program is free, and I don't know. I'm pretty sure the Russians own it, and they're just collecting data on us. But I can't come up with any explanation why this application is free, because they should be charging money for it. But I talked to some people in the industry. They said they're probably going to charge money for this later. They're just trying to build a user base, and then they're going to start doing subscription like SoundTrap. But that aside, and Rochelle, you're checking that the chat for me, right? Because I can't see it right now in the current window I have.
They're asking about where your video is on that you recorded already. It's on YouTube, correct?
Well, I'm glad you asked. It's actually at the end of the document. If you have that PDF at the very end, there's a couple of links, and I'll get to that later. But just so you know, there is a link in the PDF that I just sent.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Okay, so I'm going to skip through what all these buttons do and all these layouts and just kind of explain how I've used BandLab. Like I said, all that's in the video. So what I've done here is, this is a project. This is actually a final recording project that one of my vocal jazz groups did. And as you see, there's a lullaby. The song was called Last Lullaby, and there's an instrumental. Originally, there was a bass track, there was a drum track, and there was a piano track. But here's one of the pitfalls of Last Lullaby, limitations rather. You can only have 12 tracks. So to get around that, I've taken 3 tracks that would have been bass, drums, piano, and I've bounced or combined them into 1 track. And you can do that as much as you want. You would do that by selecting whatever tracks. You'd mute what you didn't want included in your bounce. Like say I wanted a bounce of this, this, and this. I'd go here to download, and I'd take the mix down. It would download a file that has those particular tracks mixed with whatever volumes you had preset. I would then take those 3 tracks out of the file and then import the new bounce, which includes them already. That just kind of helps save processor space. And then if you're like me, just you see less information on the screen and it just seems a little bit less cluttered. So that is an option you can do in SoundTrap as well. So that's one limitation. I'll just go ahead and talk about the other limitations. There's a 6-minute time limit on BandLab, or BandLab, but the way we've gotten around that, on the occasion we have longer than 6-minute songs, we just take 2 projects and we bridge them together. Like the last 8 measures of one song become the first 8 measures of the next project. And then we kind of smash them together in, you do need some other sound editing software, but there are free platforms to do precisely that. The other main problem, and this is a big frustration that a lot of colleagues and I tried to work through, but never really came to a satisfactory solution, was if 2 students are working on the project together, only one of their work gets saved. So our workaround was I had my section leader say, Sopranos, you have Friday from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. to get your work done. And then section leaders worked out a schedule. Okay, you've got 7 to 8, I'll take 8 to 9, you take 9 to 10. And it worked for the most part, but still, you know, students, they're not always gonna read instructions or obey what you say. So I did end up having multiple versions of it. So in that respect, it is similar to SoundTrap. So you'd have what's called project history. And it's the same, you don't lose anything. You can go back and recall any of these. But as you can tell here, like here's a moment right here. This is when 2 students were logged in the project at the same time. And then it forked like this because they had saved their work separately. And you'll see this happened quite a bit. Even though I gave very specific instructions of when to record, they still don't listen. You know, it's just I think it's a constant struggle we have as educators anyway. So all your work is saved, but that is one problem with BandLab that is not an issue in SoundTrap. SoundTrap does that really well. I even love, I love that chat function that students can talk to each other in real time and just say, hey, what are you gonna do for this? Or, hey, what if I did this? So those are the 3 main issues, complaints that I have with BandLab. But given the fact that it's a free platform, it's worth it still, because what else would we do? We would do nothing. So if you're aware of those issues, you can kind of work around them. Should I pause for questions? Are there any questions at this moment?
There actually are. So I'm going through the Padlet and asking questions. So they're not necessarily connected to this right now, but looking for good ways to engage middle schoolers who are hesitant to sing. So let's say you're trying to utilize some sort of program in this situation. How would you address that?
So I would scaffold that by creating a project that already has singers in it. I think a lot of insecurity for singers of any age comes from I'm by myself. So if you can mitigate that by saying, here's a soprano, alto, tenor track, can you add another tenor track? Meaning, as the middle school student, I hear someone else singing my part. That might make me a little bit less self-conscious, a little bit less, it might be a little bit less daunting that way. But, and that's the good thing. Once you're done with those guide tracks that you put in, you don't have to include them. You can, but you don't have to.
Okay, wonderful. The next question is, do you have any ways to actually rehearse with students? Ed has been trying with using Clean Feed, but there's lots of tech issues. So I know this
So
is
I'll talk about that once I'm done with BandLab, but
Yes.
there's an app that several colleagues and I are troubleshooting right now, which is called SoundJack. And it's been very impressive, but there is some technical know-how required for that. But I'll talk about that in a little bit.
Okay, there's another copyright issue question. This is from Monique. If she buys a track and imports and the singers use it, do they need permission to record?
I'm not a lawyer, but I have done some research on this, and as long as it's not being monetized, you're okay.
Correct. And if
Like if you've ever uploaded a video onto YouTube that has copyrighted music on it, it usually gets flagged as a copyright issue, but they just say you cannot monetize this video. And you should know that video and audio only rights issues are totally separate animals. Like if you wanted to cover a song and actually do it properly and release it on iTunes, it's like a $35 mechanical license. If you wanted to do video on top of it, that price skyrockets. But for educational purposes of it not being released and being monetized, you should be just fine.
And that's the Harry Fox agency for the video or the streaming? Yeah.
I see you've done some research yourself.
A lot. So
Yeah.
you know.
Right.
Sarah Anders is another great person to ask about that. So if Sarah wants to jump in if she's still here. Okay, any other questions before I move on? I'm going to continue to go through the Padlet. So go ahead, Brian.
Okay, so you'll see a lot of things are the same, and it's the same as a SoundTrap, but in case Angie didn't discuss, everything here is called non-destructive editing. So if I splice this right here at the playhead, oops, let's select this track, and let's say I did this and this, and instead of muting, which Angie demonstrated, what if I deleted it? It's not gone forever. I can just say, okay, I didn't mean to do that. Can I bring it back? That's what we mean by non-destructive editing. Nothing ever gets deleted unless you delete the entire track. And then, well, then you've deleted it. So again, I'm going to kind of move through this document and assume that that video might answer some of your questions. We talked about the 3 issues. The inviting of collaborators is quite similar as SoundTrap. So back in this view here, so this is the song view. You can invite collaborators here this way too. So like I said, SoundTrap, BandLab are incredibly similar. It's just that SoundTrap is a little bit more elegant in its solutions, and it doesn't have those what am I trying to say here? Those issues with students working on a project at the same time. So I just wanted to demo what I've done, how I've used it, undo the changes I just did. So this was, let me know if you can't hear this. You should have sound right about now. So that's a bounce of piano, drums, bass into one track. And what I've included is a cue track, which is me giving vocal instruction as if I was in the room with them. And then previously we put together a scratch together. So each kid sent in a track, I merged those. So it feels like they're singing with each other. A, 2, T, here's the solo.
When my battle is over,
I'm gonna skip ahead here a little
almost done.
bit. Next solo.
Feel the cold.
Feel the cold.
Away. Feel the cold wind blow. See the days growing long.
as you could tell, I've built this to try and simulate being in the room with them. There's my cue tracks here. You know, you can put anything in here. You could even sing. You could say, Jimmy, pay attention. This is the part you always mess up. You could put whatever information you want in there. This scratch track gets thrown away once students have put their actual tracks in it. And these solos are reference track. Both these soloists redid their tracks later. But that's kind of an idea of one application of this. There's another application. There's a bunch of ways you can use this. Say you do art songs in your classes and you have a piano accompaniment for that, and you want your 30 students each to submit a recording. There's actually a setting in SoundTrap and in BandLab where you can just make it once and assign it to the class, and then everybody does their interpretation of Per la Gloria or whatever you have. Or if it's a jazz standard, you know, they have their, you know, whatever tracks you're going to use. You could even use Jamie Aversold to do, okay, everybody, we're going to do 16 bars of improv. Here's the project, add yours. And no one has to see anybody else's project. In that respect, it's nice because you can say whether you want a group collaboration or just one student in their space by themselves. So what I did, I saw this as a question previously. Once students have put the recording in here, I actually download the stem, and then I'll pull that into my separate DAW. I use Logic. I do that just because it saves processing space. So instead of the kids having to their computers trying to process 12, they're only ever processing these 3 or 4. And as you can imagine, a dedicated DAW like Logic is just a whole lot more powerful than BandLab. So those are just a couple of applications, and you can really try and use this in any way. You know, SoundTrap has a built-in thing for doing like podcasts, you know, things like that. So I think there's really a lot of educational opportunities in this. So at the end of my PDF, there's actually a YouTube link to the final audio from this project. And every student except one used their phones, and we used BandLab, and I just mixed everything in Logic. So you'll get an idea of what's audio quality wise possible just through using BandLab and iPhones. No fancy USB microphones, which are great, but you know, like I said, the equity piece tells us that not every kid's going to have one of those unless we furnish it to them.
So Brian, can you tell us some of the weird things that kids have done? Because like we move forward, and if all goes well, it'll all work out great. But the kids end up doing weird things and not sounding good. And how do you address those sort of issues?
So through trial and error and collaboration with some of my colleagues, we actually came up with a document of all the things that have gone poorly. At the very forefront is students tend to record it and just send it. They don't even listen to it. So their recording could sound like that for 4 minutes of their take, but just because they never listened to it, just a simple check your work would have fixed that problem. So that's kind of at the forefront. So we've broken down a document that I can obviously share with everybody. Some people are using the earbuds with the microphone right here, and some people like to put the microphone like this and hold it, but that's really, really not necessary. So there's a couple of technique things that we've kind of experienced and kind of put all in one document. So I'm happy to share that. That'll hopefully address a lot of those issues.
That would be great. So there's questions about the scratch bounce track. Did you say you made it so the kids don't feel like they're singing by themselves, like as a guide track?
Yeah, so this is one of my advanced groups, and we did this scratch. Everybody, if I can kind of back up a few steps, I put this and this, just the instrumental and the cues, and I said, everybody go record your part. It doesn't matter if it's super clean or super accurate, doesn't matter. So they all recorded their individual tracks. I downloaded them and I bounced them to this. So this is a rough idea of what it's supposed to sound like. And then we fine tune each individual recording track. So it's kind of a two-step process. Ordinarily, if we were in a classroom, I would put a speaker out, I would blast the rhythm section part, and I'd say, everybody sing to this and record that. But since we're all distance learning, I had to sort of piecemeal put together a scratch track, and then have everybody layer on top of that. I hope that answers the question. I
do have a question personally. So did you have like 2 singers sing it, and then you exported it into Logic and then send it to the next 2? How did you work with that? Basically, yeah, basically. But I worked in groups of 4. So I had, hey, all sopranos, lay down your part for the scratch for Last Lullaby. They all did. And then I bounced that locally. I just took it down off of BandLab.
And then I said, 4 altos, go do your part. And then I'd take those downloads, bounce those locally, repeat for tenors, repeat for basses, and then eventually I end up with that scratch bounce track.
Okay.
So it's a little bit tedious, but it's just a quality control thing. You don't have to do that, actually. You don't have to do a bounce track. It just helps the kids not feel so alone.
I think it's a wise decision. There's another question about headphones. So with our phones and our headphones, what have you found that works best in regards to keeping that audio recording clear?
So I've got two things I've got to balance. One is equity and the realization that unless I give my kids the technology, they're limited to what they've got at home. And most, iPhones are fairly ubiquitous and they get those free things. So a lot of my kids ended up using that. But Angie brought up a really good point. You get a lot of bleed. So for some of my parts, this one doesn't have it. Oh, I deleted something or muted something, but there's no click track in here. Okay, I don't know what I did, but I took out my instrumental. Okay, just that it doesn't matter, but there's no click track. But on some of my projects, there is a click track. And if you don't have the right kind of earphones, or if this is too loud, you just hear guck, guck in their recording. We call that isolation in the recording world, bleed versus isolation. So if the kids have it or can get it, obviously, Angie mentioned closed back headphones. Those would be ideal. But like I said, my whole priority has been to try and deal with what kids have and clean it up from there. So as part of that document, I said, hey, make sure when you're listening to the monitor track, the click track, please don't crank it so loud that everybody hears you're clicking through your earphones.
Okay, so I apologize that I'm monopolizing this, but I'm hoping that
No,
I'm
that's
asking
fine.
questions that everybody would like to have. So have you ever considered within BandLab making 4 different versions of the same thing? So you do song 1 tenor, song 1 alto, song 1 baritone, so that then they can it's sort of isolated.
Absolutely, yeah. If you wanted to save time and just make 4 copies of the same project and send it out, you totally could do that.
Okay, and do you mix it in BandLab?
In fact, I don't know why I didn't do that before. I'm going to steal your idea. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Woohoo. A clueless person said something that's helpful. So do you mix it in this before you export it?
I personally do not. You can mix. It is a fairly capable platform, SoundTrap and BandLab both, to mix on the platform itself. But I like Logic. It just lends me a little bit more control, precision, and it's what I know. But you don't have to. And in fact, teachers can decide how much they want to be involved. Anyway, my experience has told me kids love this. Kids love being able to control their own music. So we've had a couple projects where I've said, just mix it yourself. I'm not going to touch anything. You're on your own. And the kids, they like it. They like being able to be hands-on, and I get to decide. I don't just have to listen to what my choir director tells me. So I'm sorry about the airplane. That's the trade-off. You can either have screaming children or airplanes passing by every 20 minutes. So.
Or dogs. Can I ask Angie? She has something to say about editing and post to remove noise. Can I have Angie jump in and speak to that?
Sure. So I do the same as Brian. I export my tracks when they're done I use Studio One, but I've also used Logic Pro as well. There's just more control. You can drill down into there are more filters. I found even with an adult class this summer, the recording levels and the noise levels were just all across the map. People record in different spaces. Sometimes a track will have, somebody recorded in the bedroom and the next day their garage or something. And there was more control about taking the noise out with filters in a standalone DAW, and also balancing and normalizing, which is something that puts a track at the same dB levels, that kind of thing. It's for balancing. It takes a lot of time.
Yeah, I'm trying to meet teachers where they're at. And if you have the technical know-how to use Logic, and just absolutely right, you can normalize. There's a magical software called Isotope that basically cleans up any issues you may have. But I've tried to go backwards with that and preface before recording even starts, find a quiet space, and let's all try and find a similar quiet space, because you might think a bathroom's a quiet space, but it's actually really reverberant and noisy. So I generally tell my students to find a closet. They just take their phone and their music into a closet, or put some jackets around you, something to eat up the sound.
And
But yeah, that's a real concern. Yeah,
I do the same now.
right.
Finding a quiet space is really important and a consistent space to record.
Yeah. And like I said, that equity piece, that's something I've said a few times, but it's really important to me. You know, we realize that some of the kids have multiple people at home. I mean, has anybody gone through Zoom without a dog barking? I don't think I've been through one yet without a dog, right? It's just part of life, right? So we do the best we can. But the thing is, I tell the kids, like I said, listen to your take. Does it sound clean to you? If it doesn't, do it again. Don't send it to me.
One other thing too, that even though I said it 300 times, even with adults, if you have paper and you turn a page,
Yep.
record that sound. So either like memorize as much as you can or a section, or use a tablet or something where there's no paper sound. That is really
That's in my document too. It's like if you're turning pages, there's a couple of, just on all these projects, I've been like, hey, Angie, can you go back, measure 45 to 46? All I hear is your page turn. But I will say this, sometimes teachers, it's easier just to mute. Instead of asking the kid to go back and do the take, sometimes it's easier just to hit that delete button and say, sorry, Jimmy, you don't get to appear in measures 45 and 46. You know, let's be realistic. Granted, most of us have 5, 6 preps, different choirs. Editing is tedious. These projects that I worked on, like the final product of Last Lullaby you're going to see, that's probably 20 to 30 hours of mixing for me. Just because I had so many little things to fix that normally wouldn't have happened if we were in person. So be kind to yourselves. Don't overburden yourselves, and I think it's important we all not get preoccupied with perfection. It's like, oh, it's got to be great because people are listening to this. What we're really trying to do is get kids making music again. And if it's flat here, if it's a bad cutoff here, so be it, but I think it's important to do that. Any other questions before I talk about the comparisons between educational BandLab and personal BandLab?
Yes, actually. Do you have, in addition to closets, would cars be another location?
Oh yes, I've done a couple of tracks myself on the car. Yeah.
Okay, cool. 3. First of all, a tip from Amy Eden, my colleague here in Corona Norco. She did a lesson on how to use 2 browsers to split the screen and see your digital music so you have no page turning. So that's a great thing to teach your kids. Becca, are you able to do these projects with beginning ensembles at all or just advanced? How would you navigate that?
I completely think you can do this with beginning ensembles. There just needs to be more scaffolding, a little bit more support there. If you think about how most of us run our beginning rehearsals versus our advanced rehearsals, like my advanced groups, I'm sitting in a chair and I don't sing anything. But in my beginning groups, I'm singing everything. I'm modeling this. I'm trying to make them feel like there's somebody else. It goes back to that classic example of everybody sings like a pop star when they're singing with a pop star, right? When you've got the radio full blast with Beyonce, everyone sounds like Beyonce, or at least that's what we feel like. So if we can somehow replicate that through BandLab or SoundTrap, then we should. And the way we can do that is by recording ourselves. I'm fortunate where I have a network of people that I can ask to add tracks. It's like I can ask a soprano friend or an alto friend, so it's more authentic to them. And in that respect, that's better than a classroom. Because normally my kids are listening to my falsetto in soprano and alto land, but I could use, it's kind of a silver lining of distance learning. I could bring in friends to say, hey, help me with the soprano part. And I could say, hey, that's what a soprano is supposed to sound like, not me at screechy, falsetto. But I definitely think it's possible to do beginning. You just have to support it a lot more. And you might be putting more tracks as reference to do so.
Okay, the next question is from Richard. Would you import every submitted track into another DAW or export the mix downs of the different parts?
For me, since I'm mixing somewhere else, I'm going to download each individual stem. And one thing about BandLab, when you download it, it comes down as gibberish, A665EW4327.mp3. I think it's really important that as soon as you download it, you rename it Christine Mocha, so that otherwise you're going to be sitting there going, whose track is this? I don't really know. But yeah, I would download each stem individually, import it in my DAW, and then edit that way. Okay,
next one is from Daniel. Asking about that document with all the dangers and pitfalls. You're going to send that to me as well, right? So I can send it out? Yes, absolutely. Okay, awesome. Angie, when you have someone to mute, you just mute that individual kid before you export the group, right? Correct. For example, I've had like issues where there's a noisy page turn or someone's voice just right in the middle of a take and they didn't go back and fix it.
You know, it happens. It happens to me. So I can either delete that, and I only feel like 3% bad for what I'm about to say, but there have been tracks where the kid just gets muted the entire time. And it usually has to do with not necessarily the quality of their voice, Christine. We've all done it. We have to, because sometimes kids submit recordings that are so noisy, or there's so much, you know, environmental sound that's just polluting the recording. We don't have a choice. I mean, obviously we can ask them to do it again, but, and of course I would never tell the kids, hey, Christine, I have some bad news for you. You know, I don't think that's something that's uplifting, so I wouldn't do that.
I think everyone's smiling, like those of us who've done this are all like in agreement. Yeah.
It's part of the game.
Okay, Angie wrote something in the chat, and make sure you take a look at it. She makes guide tracks for that very reason. Hey, I've considered having my leadership, like my advanced leaders in MADS, do some of the tracks for the kids in the beginning choirs, just to create community. Would that be okay? Awesome.
No, that's fantastic. And just because of our district's pushing a lot of social emotional learning content right now to take care of the emotional needs of our students, because that's kind of where they're taking a hit right now. And so a couple of us in my district have discussed doing bigs and littles. So we're pairing upperclassmen seniors with freshmen. And they're actually, because like I said, this is the silver lining of lockdown, of not being in classes. They're actually coming into the classes and acting as TAs, if you will, but singing their part. So the little babies, as we call them, can feel like they're singing with the big kids, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
It's important. Okay, jumping back in.
All right, so one important thing is the difference between educational BandLab and personal BandLab. I haven't looked into the details of it on SoundTrap, but there's an issue with COPA, Child Online Privacy Act, and technically, personal BandLab requires you to be 18. There's no proof of ID, but it's just somewhere in those terms and conditions that nobody ever reads. But somewhere in there it says you should be 18. I didn't know that. I kept using personal BandLab, and I was about to flip over to education this fall, but then now that we're using SoundTrap, it makes it a moot point. But if you find yourself using educational BandLab, it's the same exact thing, exactly the same. The layout, everything looks exactly the same, except a couple of things. Where is it? Everything is assignment based. So kids can save projects, but the second they submit it, it's like they turned in the paper to you. They can't edit it anymore. But you can send it back to them. You can send it back. But that's just a little kind of a, not a glitch, but just an annoying thing about education. Collaboration on projects is by default restricted, but you can configure student groups. It's just one more step. There is a nice thing that the teacher can make one master project and assign it to students, and everybody has their own copy of said assignment, which saves work. So you don't actually ever have to do, I'm going to make an assignment and copy it 30 times. Here's the biggest thing with educational BandLab. There is no revision history. So if you look back there, you could go back and see previous versions of a song. That doesn't exist in education. I'm not really sure why, but and those are the differences. This is all in that PDF, by the way. So if you're not fully tracking with what I'm saying, it's all explained a little bit more here. But it's basically the same thing with a couple of changes. And then I put a couple of tips in here, like I can't tell you how many times during class I wasted. Kids go, I forgot what my password was, and then they spend 10 minutes resetting their password. So that's kind of one thing that just came to my mind there. Another question I got a lot is, can it work on a Chromebook? And the short answer is yes. Practical answer, it's limited. You can only run maybe 1-2 tracks. And that's the whole reason why I pulled stems off of the project, so that if I had kids working on a Chromebook, they wouldn't be forced to be processing 12 tracks on their Chromebook. They'd only see what they needed to see. So Chromebooks can, but they're not the greatest. You actually will have better luck using a phone or a tablet. And just like SoundTrap, BandLab and SoundTrap both have dedicated apps for smartphone or for tablet. Let's see, what else did I say here? Oh yeah, so on that PDF, there's like a limited list of the tips that I said. For example, you know, encourage the students to sing out, have them adjust their mic volumes, have the students check the recordings. We talked a little bit about punching in and punching out. Angie demonstrated that the kids don't have to start at the very beginning of a track. They can go, I messed at measure 14, and start at measure 12, start singing, and then splice it such that it seems like it's one take. That's one of the beauties of this that you would never have in live music.
Brian, I'm going to jump in and ask, so if kids are on iPhone or an Android, which specific recording thing would you prefer that they use? Is it the voice recorder, or is there another app that works better?
Oh, it does it in the app. So if they're opening BandLab, they can record straight from the BandLab app.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, and I have had students that said, BandLab just, people with limited technology, they said BandLab's so slow. We have figured out a way to use just the voice memo app. And it does require two devices, but if they've got, say, two older phones, whatever, they can listen and monitor on one. And I've come up with a system. So basically the kids, this is a bad example because I'm using wireless pods, which as Angie discussed are less than ideal, but I have a click track in my voice saying 1 and 2. And I have them hold up one of their earbuds. I have them hold up, there's my audio. I have them hold up one of the earbuds to the mic of whatever the other phone is. That allows me to sync it up later. So if they just send me a voice memo, but it's been synced up with a scratch track that I provided, I can line that up pretty easily.
So then you just have to do the work of importing it.
Correct.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that solution.
Of course. So like I said, I'll let you read some of these tips. I already addressed some of the FAQs. Oh, I did want to talk about the latency test. In my experimenting with SoundTrap, you do run into some latency issues, especially if you're not using a Chrome browser. Chrome seems to be the most efficient and least resource demanding. But I'm on a Mac, so I use Safari. And I had some really bad latency, and there's no way to fix it except for clicking on it and moving it over. But that assumes that you can find that. Like if you're doing like a slower ballad, that's kind of hard to find. BandLab, this is probably the only one thing that BandLab does better than SoundTrap. There's actually a setting right here to do a latency test, and it'll adjust latency for you. I really wish SoundTrap would integrate that feature, but they don't. So you're left with manually adjusting. I think I've covered most of what's in this document. And like I said, I did want to just field questions because I'm sure there's lots of those.
Okay, so let's pop up issues. Like people have tried tried things, and what odd things have happened as you've been trying things. Can you talk about SoundJack?
Oh, SoundJack. I should probably talk about that first too.
Yes, yes.
So this came to me over the summer through the Vocal Jazz Academy group. Basically what it is, it's a web-based platform that allows nearly real-time audio communication and in very high quality. So, we could do the same thing on a phone, but a phone still has some latency, lag, and the audio quality on a phone is pretty terrible. So in our experiments, my buddy Sean and I, we broke this down last week. We got latency down to 13 milliseconds, which is negligible. And I did the math, and if you've got kids on a choir riser, and at one end to the other end, if they're about 20 feet, that's 27.9 milliseconds. So that's better than being on opposite ends of a riser, if that makes sense. So it's very promising, but the issue is it requires a little bit of technical know-how because it's not a just plug and play. Like if I look at this graphical user interface for BandLab or SoundTrap, it's semi-intuitive, it kind of makes sense, but there's just a lot of technical mumbo jumbo on the page. Doable in terms of if you had a Zoom meeting with your class and said, hey kids, let me walk you through how SoundJack's gonna work. And we've yet to experiment it, but it's only really been successful in smaller applications, like 4 to 5 singers. We have yet to try it in a group of 16, 20, or 30 for that matter. But it's promising because it allows us to have some real-time communication and real-time rehearsal potential. So I'm still working on that. I'm happy to send an update to the universe once we've figured that stuff out. But
have you heard of Jack Trip?
It's kind of hard to keep. There's SoundJack, SoundTrip,
Right?
SoundRip, There's all these platforms out there, and a lot of them are in beta testing. They're not fully fleshed out, but that one I don't know. I don't know that software.
Okay, so it sounds similar to that. And it was from some musicians, some jazz people in Nashville, and my husband told me about it. I'm going to put in the chat another one that Dan Hawkins, one of our band our board members. Upbeat Music app is another one that's come out. And so I'm concerned about the equity for me personally, the equity situation and Sound Jack, because there's some specific requirements you have to have in order to use Sound Jack, correct?
So SoundJack, it's free. All you need is a web browser. It does require you to download one set of drivers and install. But it takes a little bit of tweaking. It's like, oh, my internet connection says this, so I've got to adjust this thing, and then that. Someone in the chat I saw, SoundJack could be used for sectionals. That's actually my intention for the time being until I can test out further. At least our section leaders can get their 3 other people and run stuff, and maybe I can pop in and see what that's going, how that's going. But Jam Kazam, that's the other one, right? See, look, it's like Jamalus, Jam Kazam, Angie Jam, you know, there's just like, there's so many of these things. But I think in the coming weeks, we're all probably going to come to the same conclusion as we talk to each other. We're going to be like, you know what, I saw this. That's just kind of how the market goes, right? The things that survive are the things that work for people. So
Correct.
get rid of the sun glare.
So Sound Jack, you don't need to have, because from the training that I saw or I watched, it seemed to work best if you had an actual USB mic and you were connected to Ethernet. That seemed to be very key.
So
But
we
our
tested that.
kids- Yeah.
So with my buddy Sean, we said, everyone was telling me, oh, you have to be plugged into your router and you need a USB mic for clarity. And I said, okay, most of my kids are going to have that. Let's try this on Wi-Fi. Let's try this with the built-in mic. And we still managed through tweaking settings. We got our, we got down to 13 milliseconds.
Okay.
And, we sang with each other, and up till 30 to 40 milliseconds of delay is doable. Up to 30 to, but the problem is it's not going to work on a Chromebook. So the equity piece is a very real struggle that we're all going to have to process to suit our own students. It's kind of a challenge, but as far as BandLab and SoundTrap, there is a way to make this accessible to kids on a Chromebook as their only source of connection to the internet. It just means you might have to, as you mentioned, create a separate project that's just for them, that only has 2 tracks and nothing else. But I think we can meet these kids where they're at.
Okay, awesome. I love your can-do mindset. Christine has something to say. She was shaking her head, and I was like, no, you're fine.
No, I just was answering something in chat, but since you asked me, Brian, can you talk more? I know we talked a little bit about it, but the inner ear monitors, because I just want to hear again your experience with your kids and the cost and how that actually works well right now for social distancing.
Sure. So early in the pandemic, I had worked on a document that's floating out there right now about the theoretical application of in-ear monitors. So if you've ever seen superstars up on stage, they've got their fancy custom molded headphones that go back here. And traditionally in a vocal jazz setting, you'd have floor wedges. But instead of that, we've done that. So to try and make a long story short, I piloted that. We had some rehearsals this week with my students in collaboration with one of the booster parents, who actually is the head of infectious diseases at our local children's hospital. So he was my resource in saying, what would I have to do to be satisfactory here? But my results were so far beyond what I had hoped it would be. The clarity works. The kids all just felt like it was easy to work with. The only issue is it's going to cost your program some money. So the stipulations that I received were everybody has to be at least 12 feet apart, double the usual 6 feet. Everybody has to be outdoors, facing the same direction, and no one can share microphones. That's where you kind of get hit in the wallet. So I ended up, most of us know that the Shure SM58 is like the ubiquitous vocal jazz microphone. I bought Shure SM48s, which are about $35, which means I could almost buy 3 of those for the same price as a 58. And if they're only used for rehearsals, and I just loan those out like I would a textbook or a concert attire. So I'm working on that in terms of what it might look like to integrate technology to be able to rehearse in person. But my initial findings are just super encouraging. The biggest issue is it's going to cost money, because you're probably going to need to invest in some microphones, some wires, and some basic hardware to make that work. But that might be another in-service to discuss. Someone asked about using an iPhone. Yeah, like I said, both SoundTrap and BandLab have smartphone apps and tablet apps, and in a respect, they work better. The processing power of this, sadly, can be better than a Chromebook. So most of my students just end up doing that.
That's great news. I have a question in regards to, like, if we have Chromebooks and they don't use their phone, they have to use their Chromebook. We have to get this approved. Like, if we used SoundTrap or BandLab, our district tech people would have to approve things. Have you had any issues or problems getting those programs approved by your district?
Not at all, because they're all web-based. Most times a district IT wants to get involved is if you're downloading software and installing it, because they worry about it being a portal of being vulnerable. But since it's web-based, most of our IT has just said it's no different than navigating to Google or navigating to Wikipedia. Or the issue you come into is, like we've mentioned, is COPA. Just kids using either personal information, such as personal email accounts, but for those of us that are getting site licenses for all these software, they're using their school email accounts, which are all student65532@lbschools.net or something, you know, non-revealing.
Okay. Awesome. We have 4 minutes before we're going to take another break. And I'm wondering if there's anyone who wants to jump in and ask a question, answer a question. Brian, this has been wonderful. And you've brought up all these little details that we're going to get stuck with.
Yeah, and I wanted to encourage everybody, and you know, I know some of this can be really daunting, like, oh, I've never, like, I was speaking with one of you separately in a text, just like, I've never done any of this. This is all brand new. But I think this can be applied in a way to both meet you where you're at and your students. And like I said, I think the priority just has to be not necessarily on quality, but on the fact that we're making music again with our students. Because I think a lot of us haven't, you know, for me, March 13th was the last day I saw my kids in person. And I know for me, I crave that ability to make music, and I know the kids do too. So be kind to yourselves, set your bars low, you know, just say, hey, you know, let's just mess around with BandLab. Let's just play. We're not even singing songs. Like a few of us in the district have agreed. We're not even going to talk rep for the first 3 weeks or so. You know, we're just going to talk about, you know, how you kids doing? What do you guys, like, we've had honest conversations with our kids. We've just said, what is worthwhile to you? What feels like a waste of time? Do you want to do more virtual choirs? Do you want to do more of this? And the kids have been bluntly honest. And so we've kind of tailored our curriculum around that. But yeah, I realize that this can be a little challenging because it's brand new technology, but if I could just kind of say one thing, just don't let yourselves be prideful in terms of having your students show you how to do things, you know? I think it's kind of always surprising how quickly our kids pick up on technology things, whereas we're still struggling. So you're gonna have a couple of kids that pick this up super quick. I see a couple questions here. Oh yeah, so Richard Langham asked a question. I actually sent this last lullaby to be mastered to a buddy of mine. I sent it to my friend Ian, and he actually did that for me. And that was just a time thing. I said, hey, I've got all these other projects. Can you master this? And you know, it just depends. He's a friend, so you know, I think he charged me $100, but you know, that's something you can do. Conducting videos, that takes a little bit more doing, but I have done that. But what I've done instead to take advantage of the platform that is BandLab and SoundTrap, I just speak my conducting. 1 and 2 and 3 E and 4 E and 17 and 2 and 3, and then they get used to that. A couple of run-throughs on that, they kind of get used to that. So I do that a lot. I just try and verbalize my conducting as much as possible, especially on tempo changes. It's anything's possible. If you wanted to do video, you totally could. Like you could do if they've got 2 devices, they could show the video of you conducting and then record their part with the different. You don't even need BandLab for that. So that's my thing. I think there's a solution for everything that we need. We've just got to go find it with technology that we have in 2020. Oh, I said the naughty word. In the current year, I don't like saying this year just because I feel like it's saying Voldemort. I think the technology is out there to deal with every single challenge you all have. We just have to find it together. And like I said, BandLab, SoundTrap are great platforms for that. But the technology is out there and the training is obviously out there. Somebody knows how to do it. So we just got to lean on each other in that respect.
Okay, a couple more questions. When you record with rubato, the tempo changes, are you worried about the audio not matching up with the bar numbers, or do you just switch it to time? What do you do?
Oh yeah, so if the song's rubato or not in a set tempo, I don't care about the bar lines at all. That's just not a thing I care about. Yeah.
Okay, Alexis just put one in there. She said you can make virtual choirs without these as possible. She just finished one last night. There's something out there for all of us.
Absolutely. And my way of doing things is not maybe the best way. It's just what I've gotten used to. So totally, that sentence right there. There's something out there for all of us. I believe that 1000%. There's a way to get things done, right?
Samuel asked, do you verbalize the conducting for the entire piece or just at important sections?
I don't have a clear answer. It depends. If I trust the group to keep tempo in a certain section, then I'll just leave it alone. But yeah, it just depends.
Okay, let's, if you can stop sharing your screen, Brian, and then we're going to give you a huge, massive thank you.
I'm going to try and answer some of these questions that are coming up. So I'll stay on a few minutes and answer these questions.
Awesome. So Brian's going to keep going. And we'll see you back at 11. Jay is up. Woohoo! Thank you, Brian.
Of course.
Thanks, Brian. That was great. That was great. It's nice to hear all the things you're doing with your classes. And
thank you, Angie. You kind of made my job easier because you covered most of the nuts and bolts of everything. And I could just say, hey, who's got questions?
Yeah, no, that's cool because there's so much. There's so many questions. So I'm glad to collaborate. And thanks, Rochelle, for having us on. I'm going to duck out. I've got a gazillion things to do this morning, but it was really nice to see you.
Bye, Angie.
Bye.
Bye, Brian. Great job.
Bye, Angie.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Brian.
You gotta know that I'm feeling this. Come and roll with me, we're rocking body moves. Me and you, just a little body moves. Just a little bit. Come and hold with me, oh baby, let it loose. Me and you, just a little body moves. Just a little bit. I don't need it, but you know how bad I want it. And your touch has got me haunted, but love. cause I'll always stay. You gotta know that I'm feeling this. Come and roll with me, we're rocking body moves. Me and you, just a little body moves. See the moves. Come and hold with me, oh baby, let it loose. Me and you, just a little body moves. I don't need it, but you know how bad I want it. And your touch has got me haunted, but I yeah. Come and roll with me, we're rocking body moves. Me and you, just a little body moves, just a little bit.
Don't think about it, just move your body. Listen to the music, sing oh, eh, oh. Just move those left feet, go ahead, get crazy. Anyone can do it, sing oh, eh, oh. Show the world you got that fire. Feel the rhythm getting louder. Show the room what you can do, prove to them you got the moves. Hey, I don't know about you, but I feel better when I'm dancing. Yeah, yeah. I'm better when I'm dancing. Yeah, yeah. And we can do this together. I bet you feel better when you're dancing. Yeah, yeah. When you finally let go and you slay that solo, cause you listen to that music, sing it oh, hey, oh. Cause you're confident, babe, yeah, and you make your hips sway. We knew that you could do it, sing oh, hey, oh. Show the world you got that fire, baby. Feel the rhythm getting louder. Show the room what you can do, prove to them you got the moves. Hey, I don't know about you, but I feel better when I'm dancing. Yeah, yeah. I'm better when I'm dancing. Yeah, yeah. And we can do this together. I bet you feel better when you're dancing. Yeah, I feel better when I'm dancing. I'm better when I'm dancing. Hey, oh, hey, oh. I feel better when I'm dancing. Yeah, yeah. Better when I'm dancing. Yeah, yeah. Don't you know we can do this together? Bet you feel better when you're dancing. Yeah, I feel better when I'm dancing. I'm better when I'm dancing. Hey, feel better when I'm, yeah, yeah.
Hey, where did we go? The days when the rains came down in the hollow.
Welcome back, everybody. We're so excited for this third hour of collecting information into our big basket of tools, which is nice to have tools. I'd like to welcome Jay Shu as our next presenter. So let's give him in advance a huge virtual round of applause. And Jay, let us know who you are, where you're at, and jump right in. We're super excited.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to share this virtual stage with Brian and Angie. Is such an honor to me, and to be able to help our fellow teachers. It's a great honor to me. So thank you so much for asking. I've been teaching. It's in my slide, which I'm gonna be sharing pretty soon. But this is my 23rd year teaching at Bellflower Unified School District. I taught middle school most of the time, and when Carolyn Kelly, who is SCVA's treasurer, retired, I took over her position, and I'm going to be teaching high school. Well, I am teaching high school and one class of middle school this year. So today what I'm going to do is I have made a little slide for you guys, and I'm basically going to be talking about the steps that I took to make virtual choir. I'm not going to go detail on app specific or software specific information, but I'm just going to talk through the processes that I took when I was making the videos. Okay. All right. I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. So as the title says, this is a beginner's guide to creating virtual choir videos, what I learned as a complete beginner. So as a disclaimer, I never really worked on video editing or anything like that. So I'm not an expert in this per se. So I do have, I directed church choir for 25 years. I have, just like Brian, I have 3 kids, 13, 10, and 4. This is my 4-year-old, and he gives me a lot of trouble when I'm making videos and teaching a class online. And I'm gonna say a little bit about that because I wouldn't be able to work on any projects until everybody in the house goes to bed. And so I would sometimes stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning to finish video project. So yeah, it's very, very time consuming and tiring, to say the least. Again, I've done some audio recording. So I had that in my bag of tricks, but never done video editing. So I would consider myself as somewhat tech savvy, but not an expert in video editing. So today's agenda, as I said, I'm just going to talk about how I got started on creating virtual choir videos and how I decided on my video editor software and step-by-step process that I came up with. And I'm going to show you a sample session on Filmora Pro, like how things work briefly. And I'll just also talk about general information on how video editors work. And I'll have some Q&A session later on. So here's why I decided to make virtual choir. As all of you, when we went on lockdown, thought about what am I going to do with my kids. But I had this interest in making videos like virtual choirs for a long time. So I had time in my hand. So I said, why don't I get into this? Why don't I learn? So I wondered about how it was made and what kind of resources I would need. And COVID shutdown gave me time and motivation to create virtual choir. So let's talk about video editors. So I tried many different video editing softwares. So I tried iMovie because I have, they gave me a MacBook from my campus. But I'm not a Mac person, so I wasn't really comfortable using it. Microsoft Video Editor that comes with my computer, but it's very limited. And there's a free software called VSDC Video Editor. And I looked into getting Adobe Premiere, but I wasn't able to get it. I'll explain that in a second. And I also tried Filmora 9 and Filmora Pro, and this is the software that I'm using. Almost everyone has free versions to try. So reason I chose Filmora Pro is because it gives you ability to edit video and gives you audio editing capabilities. And that was a big selling point for me. Now, I know Adobe Premiere does almost the same thing as Filmora Pro, if not more. But the reason why I settled on Filmora Pro was it was readily available for me to download. So I reached out to my school district and said, hey, can I use Adobe Premiere? I heard somebody in our school has site license. Can I download it? Can somebody share that site license with me? And those people who were in charge just were not willing to do the extra work to share that license with me, and it was just going to take too long for them to give it to me. So I just go ahead and spend $100 to download Filmora Pro on my own, because it was just readily available, and I felt like it had all the effects and the features that I wanted. So like I said, it also has audio effects such as reverb, mixer, normalization, panning ability. So it felt like it was what I really needed. However, Filmora Pro, I ran into a lot of glitches. So unless you're able to troubleshoot and have lots of patience, I do suggest Adobe Premiere. I heard it's more stable and it's easier to use. That's what I heard. However, Filmora Pro, once again, it was only $100 one-time download fee, as opposed to Adobe Premiere. I think school has to pay for it, it's like a licensing fee. It's quite expensive. So there's that. So I did a separate audio recording done through Audacity. Audacity is a free audio recording and editing software, and it's very easy software to use, and it's free. So I strongly suggest that.
Jay?
Yeah.
Michelle Espinosa dropped in and said that DaVinci Resolve 16 is great and has an amazing free version as well. So that might be another option for people to consider.
Awesome. What is it called again?
DaVinci Resolve 16.
Okay, thank you. All right, so let's say you're motivated and you want to make this virtual choir video. First thing I suggest to you is have a realistic and achievable goal. Your first video is going to be very time consuming, because not only do you have to put in time for audio editing, now you're having to deal with video editing, because it's going to take double the amount of time. You just heard Brian and Angie talk about how time consuming it is to do audio editing, right? And it's going to take just like double the time, if not triple. So it's very important that you strategize for success by picking a song everybody knows. Pick a song that is easy to record and edit. Little or no syncopation or change of tempo. As your first video, you don't want to be dealing with lining up, rubato or ritardando. You want to just make it very simple, very clean cut. The harmony, don't make it shouldn't be too dissonant, yeah? And easy entrance, very important. Easy entrance and easy cutoffs. And try to pick a song that has an instrumental track available. And you might want to begin with just few selected singers. And very important, organize your project and communicate clearly with your singers. And I'm going to click on this so you can see what I did. Okay. Now, can everybody see my screen with my Google?
Yes.
Yes, okay. So it says online learning project number 2, make over the rainbow video. So I laid it, I typed detailed direction to my students. So my first direction was research and learn. Listen to the original recording of this song recorded by Judy Garland, and it's the Over the Rainbow song, yeah. And then I provided them another YouTube clip that had that was a piano instrumental track. So I told the kids, okay, learn the song first. And then once you learn the song completely, then use this instrumental track to go over the song on your own without listening to Judy Garland's version. And then I told them to record. You may need more than one device, 2 phones if you do not have a computer or Chromebook. And I gave them all the direction: pick a quiet place, put your recording device on a stand rather than holding it in your hand, while listening to the instrumental track through your headphone. And this was very important to me, that only their voice gets recorded on the device. And this is a really great tip for you to know. Make at least 3 takes and pick your best, because what some kids do is they record themselves and they go, oh my gosh, I sound horrible. And they end up not submitting any videos. So I just told them, make 3 takes and send me the best one. And then I told them to upload it on Google Drive, and then had them share on the assignment sheet. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to my presentation. Can you all see my presentation now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so, and this is the result of that first video, Over the Rainbow.
Is there supposed to be audio?
Yeah.
So the audio is not on. So maybe we need to stop the share and reshare with the share audio, that tiny little box down there, which
Got it.
I miss on a daily basis.
Okay.
Still not showing.
Still no video? I mean, no audio?
Right. Oh,
Let's try that again. By the way, that first girl, I didn't tell her this, but she just dressed up as Dorothy. So I was like, wow, perfect. Let's try that again.
okay. Yeah, there's still no music.
No music? Oh,
No.
well,
Can you stop the share screen again and then reopen it and make sure that little box in the bottom is, well, you know that box.
stop share. Okay, let's try that one more time. And we're gonna try one more time. If it doesn't work, there's a link there. You can just anything.
We'll just pretend we can hear it.
Okay. So as you can see, what I did was I just spliced up students' video, little section of the song at a time, and I just put them together. It's very basic. It's not video editing, a lot of video editing. So it was the easiest project for me. It did take me a couple of days, but that's one way to start learning about your software. Okay, let's see.
I have a quick question.
Yep.
It was all just unison, right? And then you listened to the whole song and you chose which section sounded the best for each kid?
That's correct. Yeah. So everybody sang the same thing and it was all unison. And I decided which part of their song to feature in the video.
So what happens with that kid who struggles?
Yeah. So what happened was I would select the best part of their performance. So for instance, there's this one girl, I think okay. So I'm gonna share this screen with you. So this particular girl, right? She had a spaghetti strap on, her bra was showing, her mom was walking by, her little brother was bothering her during the entire recording. So what I did was I picked the part that was the best. And then I said, and I decided, okay, I'm gonna put that section of the song over here. When she sang way up high, that was actually the second verse, but I sliced it and put it in the first verse, just so that she can be featured in the video.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
We do what we can to make them
Exactly, yeah.
successful.
Okay, so hang on a second. So going back to the presentation. All right, so that was my first video. So then here's my step-by-step guide on making more virtual choir. Once you decide on a song, who's going to participate, create a Google Drive where you will store all your supporting material, instructions, and videos. Create an audio recording of each part, either on piano or with vocals. YouTube or other online sources may have the part videos, which I'm going to show you later. I myself prefer to record with my voice because I get to show them exactly the way I want them to record to minimize confusion and maximize precision. Once you decide to create all parts, put them together and create a complete recording for them. This was for my personal satisfaction because, you know, it's like, wow, I made a 4-part harmony on my own, but also they get to hear what it's going to sound like. And save all the recording in the Google Drive folder you've created. And I'm going to show you really quick how I did that. And this is, let's see, hang on one second. Let me try this again. Share computer sound. There it is. Okay. All right, so this is the my Audacity software. It's just like any other music editing software. And again, it's free, it's easy to use. And this is with my church choir that I worked with. Once again, it's nice to have instrumental track because you can use it as your anchor. That's the solo part. That's why there's no singing here. And I come in around here. He knows your name and speaks it to his Father. His thoughts are with you. I mean, not the best recording, but you know, it gives the singers an idea what it's gonna be like, yeah. So what I would do is I would take just the, like, for instance, soprano line and the instrumental track, or soprano and alto line and the instrumental track, make an MP3 out of those and send it to my singers. Same thing for tenors and instrumental track, make a recording, send it to my students, and so on and so forth. Okay, I'm going to continue on. So the next thing I do is I create a conducting video. I focus on entrance and cutoffs and every other expression you want your singers to carry out. And here's an example of the conducting video for Seasons of Love. Let me know if you can hear.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
525,600 minutes.
Notice I'm mouthing the words and my conducting is very clear. It's not very big, but it's just, I focus on the precision.
525,000 moments so deep. 525,600 minutes. How do you measure a year?
And so on and so forth. And again, what song you choose is going to be very important. You want to make sure kids buy into the song you decide. So just strongly encourage that you pick the song that kids are going to really love singing. Okay. So that's my conducting video. This is a very important key, communicating with your singers. Give a detailed step-by-step directions. And I'm going to show you this one again. This is the one that I made for Seasons of Love project. So I had them listen to the song, had them learn the song, sent them a copy of PDF. I asked them to print it out if they can. And look at this. This particular song, it actually has YouTube videos for each part. So there are guys out there who play on the piano or sing, and they made tracks for their singers for soprano, tenor, alto, bass. So I was like, I don't have to make it. So I shared that with them. And I gave a specific direction on as far as the solo parts. I had all the sopranos sing measures 33 through 36. All the altos sing measure 37 and 40. And tenors and basses sing measure 41 to 44. And if you're not auditioning for solo part, sing the oo part. And so those directions were very, very specific. Not everybody understood my directions, but I did my best to give them very clear directions. Again, this procedure for recording yourself is the same. Hang on a second. All right. Let's see. So more detail will result in better video. So you want to talk to them about camera orientation. Do you want it sideways? Do you want it vertically? What kind of outfit do you want them to wear? What kind of background do you want them to show? Facial expression, anything you can think of, make sure to communicate with your singers. Because once they submit it, it's going to be hard for you to say, hey, can you make another one because, you know, the camera orientation wasn't right. You know, it just takes too much time. So you just want to communicate it out in front before you start editing. Yeah. And more uniform the submission, like for instance, if the video is in the same orientation, it's less work for the editor, which is going to be you. Now, this is very important. As I said, be sure to let the singers know that their singing does not have to be perfect. Tell your singers, once you learn your part, ready to record, make 3-4 recordings and send the best one. Otherwise, it's going to take them too long to make it perfect. So give them an okay to not be perfect. Give a clear deadline, please, and pray and wait.
Jay,
yeah,
we have a question. We're wondering about the time frames. Angela's wondering the amount of time that it took from start to finish. Let's talk about your first project and then how the time shifted as you did more and more.
So I gave myself about 2 weeks. First, actually 2.5 weeks. So I give my students about a week and week and a half to learn the song and to submit the video to me. Once the video started coming in, I think it took solid 20 to 30 hours for the first video. It took longer because of the glitches I had. But without the glitches, I think I would have been done in like 20 hours, the first video. And once again, it was just sort of linear. It didn't have multiple videos or multiple people singing at the same time. So in that sense, it was much easier. However, the next video you're gonna see, it's gonna have more features, more people singing, more videos moving around. So that took a while. Again, I think that took about 30 solid hours to put together.
Okay, that's good news. So we can expect a week's worth of work.
Yeah.
late at
And-
night if we have young kids.
Exactly. But you know, I'm getting faster, which I will show you later. I'm getting faster, and I might be able to knock everything down like within a day.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. That's really encouraging.
Yeah.
And how many projects have you done?
I did about 3 with my school choirs, and I did about 4 or 5 with my church choirs.
Okay, cool. There's a philosophy out there, and Michelle brought it up. Michelle Espinoza, she brought it up about some people doing, when they're doing audio and video, that they do the video separately.
Right.
What's your success with that?
Now, to me, that's double the amount of work. And as I will show you later with Filmora Pro, this particular software lines everything up together, and you can edit the audio on its own. So to me, it made sense to have the right software where you do everything on the same software, and you can just knock it out all together.
Okay.
It may not sound the best. It may not sound the best, but you know, it's on YouTube anyways, so it doesn't have to sound perfect. It's not a studio recording.
Okay, so it's your preference as to what workflow works best for you.
Right, right.
Okay, the next question is how, this is from Samuel, we're wondering about, he's wondering, and me too, how you would work this in your classroom. Is this like an out-of-school homework assignment? Is this something that you do have them sign off and do during class? How would you manage it?
So that's a very good question. So what I'm working towards right now in my classroom is I'm teaching the students their parts. And once they learn the parts, I'm going to assign them this project where, okay, you're going to use yourself singing the entire song from beginning to the end. And then they're going to submit that video to me as part for grade. And on my own, this would be sort of like putting together a concert. On my own, I would put this video together for them, to motivate them and to show them, hey, this is what you've guys done as a class together.
Okay, so they're recording it as homework per se.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
As a project.
Okay, and then, okay, so when they ask, this is my question, the kids get lost. They have 92,000 questions. They don't know how to do things. Do you choose to have recording office hours? Do you choose to be available during class time? How do you manage all their thousands of questions?
So I have office hours, but also they can email me anytime. But I feel like if you give them enough information at the beginning, they'll be able to pull through. So let's say they're having technical questions, technical issues, then they can always have a meet with me during the office hour. And then I would walk through what the situations are with them personally.
Okay. Angela's wondering if you would recommend this for only like the more advanced kids, or would you do everybody? And would you have them sing with just the instrumental or the vocal part in their ears as well, especially if they have pitch issues?
I would have them, for younger singers and less advanced singers, I would have them sing with the practice part that I gave them. For more advanced singers, for my adult choir, I just give them the instrumental track, and they would sing along with the instrumental track. But for those kids who are pitch challenged, and I'm going to show you a little trick later on. I'll save that for a little later.
Okay, and Alexis is giving great encouragement where she does an entire class period on how to record properly, how to submit, how to rehearse. Would you agree it takes about a period, class period?
No, it takes more than a period. It takes several. It's going to take several days. Yeah.
Okay.
And give them small projects. First, learn how to record your name and send it to me, and send it in the right format, things like that. Just start very, 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 very basic.
Okay, this is another personal question. So we do Flipgrid a lot. Have you ever taken Flipgrid videos and downloaded them and put them into
I have not yet. Okay. I am using Flipgrid for my classes right now, but students are a little too self-conscious about singing for everyone to hear, at least right now, because it's early in the year. So what I'm working towards is I'm gonna give them an assignment where they're gonna sing a short, maybe 30-second of any song of their choice, and they're gonna put it on Flipgrid, and students are gonna comment on it. And we're gonna, again, I think it's important to start little steps at a time, so that kids can get used to this kind of exposure.
Agreed. Just as a personal experience, I do use Flipgrid, but I keep everything on hidden so they cannot see each other, and that seems to give them a little bit more confidence.
Right.
So that's another option as well.
I haven't downloaded Flipgrid videos yet, but I mean, I feel like Google, because we're using Google Classroom setting, and you know, I assign it as a classroom project / assignment. So for them to just upload it there, I think it's just more seamless.
Okay, so that's your workflow that works great.
Right,
Love
right.
it. Thank you. Amy Eden just said Flipgrid also goes straight to your drive. So that's good to know.
Okay, that's great.
Annika, I will try to find that right now and I will put it into the chat. So thank you, Jay, for letting me interrupt, and you're back on.
I'm running short on time, so let's continue on. All right, so talked about that. Okay, so give a clear deadline, everybody, because people are gonna definitely be late. So give a clear deadline and just pray and wait, please. Now, while you wait, you can start thinking about what your video is gonna look like. Start thinking about, where am I gonna put my singers? Is it gonna be in square grid? Is it gonna be in triangle grid? Is there gonna be background? Think about different creative ideas to make your video look more appealing to viewers and your singers. Oh, next. Now, before you edit, once you start getting submissions of videos, you can start editing. Okay, you don't have to wait for everybody to turn in their the videos. Once you get 1 or 2, go ahead and start editing, please. And then you can begin by pre-editing process by making sure the singer's videos are in the right format, correct orientation, change lighting, fix audio. If there are people walking around in the back, you can cut those out. All those things, you have to do it. It's better to do it separately before you put it all together. Like, for instance, videos recorded on iPhones were not compatible with Filmora Pro for some reason. I don't know whether they fixed that or not, but I just couldn't see it. So what I had to do was, I would have to take that video from iPhones, use Microsoft Video Editor, using it to do a quick edit, and I would render it into correct format that Filmora Pro can see. And the next step is laying down the instrumental track, and this will be your cornerstone of your project. If you're doing an a cappella piece, lay down your practice tracks, and you can take it out at a later time. Now let's edit. Begin with your best singers. Lay down your best singers first. Person who cuts off on time every time. Person who enters correctly every time. Person who sings on pitch every time. You know, pick that person to be your first track. And then you pick the next person and line up that singer, the second person's voice, with the first person's voice. And as you do this, you can start adjusting the individual volume levels. Yeah, and I'm gonna show that in a minute. And you do the same thing, add more singers, concentrating on their entrances. Don't worry so much about cutoffs, because cutoffs can be edited. You can just cut them off at the end. Visually, using the wave signals, move the videos to sync with songs in general, but you have to use your ears to make sure the singing lines up with one another. And I'm gonna show you what I mean by that in a minute. As you add more videos, move the videos to where on the screen they will go. And once again, I will show you that in a minute. I'm just gonna go over these really, really quickly so I can actually show you how I put my videos together. So transitions. Adding transitions will make your video look more refined and professional. Many options are available. Find the ones you like. Background. Adding background pictures will add another interesting element to your video. There are many websites that offer free beautiful backgrounds. So like, for instance, like you saw Over the Rainbow, and I found this picture of a rainbow, and I put that as my background. And so you just kind of pick the background that goes along with the theme of your song. So here's a little quick example of the backgrounds that I chose for my adult choir. Can you guys see this video?
Yes, and we can hear it.
Awesome. And notice the background will change in a minute. Matches the word. So you get the idea, right? Okay. Let's see. And resize your videos to make the whole video more interesting for viewers and look organized. And you saw that, you know, I kind of moved the videos around to make it and have the little transitions so that it looks more interesting. All right, now here's a little tip about audio. So once all the videos are put together, then that's where I really dive into audio editing. Once all the audio issues, once all the videos are aligned and edited, clean up mistakes such as cutoffs, wrong entrances, and wrong notes. And you can clean those up by editing individual singer. You can EQ and add reverb. And once again, I chose Filmora Pro because it had those functions. Now, this is something that I personally found very helpful making your video sound good, is you want to pan each singer in different level. Keep the stronger singers towards the center. So like before the pan, everybody is in the center of your sound stereo, right? But I would move people around, pan them around so that the soprano would be like way on the left-hand side of your earphone, and basses would be way on the right-hand side, and another bass would be a little less to the right, and so on and so forth. And it gives you that nice stereo sound that you would hear in a real life concert. Okay, and then you want to add title and credit. Depending on software, there may be many templates to choose from. Don't try to make your own, just use the templates because it's going to cut down a lot of time. Okay, now render and post. Rendering means putting all the clips into one video. Once you finish your project, now you have to put it together in one video, and it may take several hours. Once you press that render button, walk away, drink some coffee, and spend some time with your family because you've been away for a long time. Well, at least I was. And then once your video is rendered, it's time to post it on the internet. I usually post my videos on YouTube. It's most accessible. This also takes a few hours sometimes. And it's very important to make sure that your students have a consent form signed. So you don't want to put somebody on the internet without the consent, and that would be, you might get in trouble for that. Let's see, if you work with reputable software, there are many tutorials available on YouTube. This is what I found out. Unfortunately, tech support was not very responsive, so I had to figure things out all on my own. All right, so before I show you how things work, do you want to do some Q&A?
There's a lot of questions, but Brian is kind of answering them in the chat as we go.
Awesome.
So since thank you so much, Brian. So I'm just going to have you keep going because you said we're running out of time. So let's keep going.
All right. So this is Filmora Pro. I'm going to create a new project. I put all my videos in one file, and you go to media and you start adding the files you want. So first file I'm going to add is Seasons of Love instrumental. Let's see. she's good. She's good. She's good. She's good. She's good. You just start adding them. Oh yeah, piano intro. And then there's one kid that I wanted you to see. This guy. All right, good. Okay, so now all the videos and audio I want is in the media file. So first I set the instrumental track in the audio 1. Now you don't want to put it all the way at the beginning because you want a little space. Now right now I have the click snap tool. So you want to turn that off so you can move it around freely. Let's make sure you can hear it. You hear it, right? Okay, good. Now I'm gonna add my first video. Let's see. I'm gonna leave the video 1 slot open because I want to add background later on. So I'm gonna do track 2 on video. Now here's how I add, match it up or line things up. So I'm gonna zoom in a little bit by pressing Control and roll my mouse wheel. And it zooms in a little bit. Okay, here we go. Obviously that's a little off. So we know that we want to be right around there, right? Okay, let's just make sure.
525,600.
That's where the vocal is supposed to come in. So you can see the waveform, right? The waveform, you want to line it up to that line right there. And then you got to use your ear to fine tune it.
525.
A little off.
500.
Still off.
500.
Still off, sorry.
500.
Still off. Let's zoom in a little more.
500.
Okay, we're almost there.
500.
Once you find the first spot, then it gets easier.
500.
Still early.
500.
Still early. A little more.
525.
There we go. Now we're on. So then I'm gonna add next singer to video 3. Zoom out. She starts singing here, right? So then we want to match it to the first singer visually. Notice it's almost there. Not quite. Now let's take a listen.
525.
Not quite. Almost there, but not quite.
525,000.
Pretty much lined up, right? Now, I only have like 5 more minutes. So I'm going to show you one student, this guy right here, my favorite student. Notice what he does on his video. And you might want to turn your volume down just a little. My direction was no music in your recording. Notice you hear recording.
525,600
And notice he comes in too early.
minutes.
And did you hear the beep? The smoke detector battery alarm?
525,000.
Okay, so now I have to deal with this, right? And I'm gonna deal with it as best as I can. So I'm gonna lay it down here. Now, there's no way for me to know where the singing starts because of this waveform is just all over the place. So then you gotta just sort of investigate where it is. Oh, what did I just do? All right, let's try.
600 minutes, 525,000.
He starts singing right around here. So what I'm gonna do is zoom out just a little. I'm gonna cut this part out. Let's go right here. Then bring it here. Sorry if it's a little tedious, you know, it is very tedious work.
125,000.
Okay, it's a little off.
125,600.
Now, what I do is this is the volume level button. Now, you don't hear him, but he's still in the video. So I resize it. I resize it. I resize everything. His mouth is in sync, but you don't hear him. And you just put them wherever you want him to go. Okay, I think I'm gonna stop sharing with that, and I'll take some questions.
Let me as I was asking before, I know in certain projects that I've done, you know, when I first started it, so it wouldn't be a long process. I would start with something just really super short, all of it me, before I even get into it with the students, because again, I've never done virtual choirs. And so I was just wondering, would it make better sense for you to, maybe for me to just put together something 30 seconds, 45 seconds, so that
Totally,
it won't take so much glitches to get out. You know, I don't, you know, not putting together a 2 or 3 minute song when it's the very first time I've done it. And then maybe perhaps putting together something extremely short to get the glitches out when I'm very green with all of this.
Yeah, totally. I totally agree with you. And also, it's going to take a little bit of time for you to learn where all the buttons are and what all the function it does. So I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
Any other questions, either in the chat or? So if you were working with middle schoolers versus the high schoolers that you're working with this year, what differences would you do? Like, how would you plan it differently?
I don't know if I would plan things differently, because I think everybody needs a lot of information to put together something like this. The difference would be repertoire. Something a little more challenging. I would give high school kids a little more challenging. Maybe something with a little more tempo changes, and they would have to watch my conducting very carefully. And again, I would go over that with them before we start the project. And again, I would give them a short project and say, okay, I'm gonna give you this short project where you're gonna be watching me conduct, and you're gonna sing like maybe 20 seconds, or you're gonna say ta for 20 seconds, you know? So just baby steps is all the way to go.
Okay, awesome. It's been wonderful because Brian has been answering questions in the chat as we've been
Thanks,
going
Brian.
on.
I want to know what those questions are.
No problem.
Do you want to bring up some of the questions, Brian?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Do you want to bring up some of the things that you've been talking about within the chat that people have had questions about?
No, I'm just trying to answer some of these questions. Jay, great job, by the way.
Thank you.
One thing I did want to say, in case you missed it, that everybody's going to have their own workflow. This is one way to do it, and it's not wrong. My workflow is completely different, and they both work. You know, it's all preference, and obviously you got to work with whatever software you have. So one thing we're talking about right now in terms of synchronizing tracks, because as you noticed, that could be these things, and up 20 to 30 things. So every single one of my videos that I do has exactly what Arthur has said. Like there's claps.
Yes.
For me, I actually just have my audio. I've pre-recorded my voice to go 1 and 2 and 1, 2. then it starts. So
Right.
then I can just line that up a little bit easier.
With your own voice.
Yeah, with my own voice I use. There's just a lot of ways. Find your workflow. I mentioned in the chat, if you do this like once, twice, you'll be like, oh, this is really annoying. So you kind of figure things out on your own.
Okay, thank
I
you,
have
Brian.
one more question. And so I have, again, this is my first time. What would be most prudent when you have 5 periods of classes? You know, I don't know if I want to do 2 separate projects. Should it be one big project, or is it okay to do separate projects, especially, you know, instead of combining all of these students together? I mean, how should I handle that?
So I would start with the smaller projects first and shorter project, because more videos you add, it's going to take longer time. So you want to start with maybe a dozen, maybe 15. And then once you get really used to it, then you can open it up to everybody.
Okay.
Okay, there's a question from Brian Hunley, fellow CNUSD, yay. How do you deal with kids uploading the file types that don't directly import into Filmora? Or has that not been an issue?
It was an issue. It was a big issue. I couldn't figure out why. And again, I went and used a different video editing that took that that video's format, and I had turned it into the format that Filmora accepted. So whichever software you use, you may have to do that. You may have to use a different software to format it differently and then use it on your software.
Okay, next question. If a kiddo, this is from Cynthia, records something on a low quality device, which we all know will happen, and their audio keeps being over modulated, distorted, or they have tech problems, what would you suggest?
So I had a student who had her fan on in her room, so you could hear this hum throughout her recording. So one of the things I found was that software actually has a noise canceling feature, and I used it a little bit. Of course, you have to adjust the levels so that you don't hear the hum or buzz. And also, some kits, you know, they distort. Where it distorts, you can just adjust the volume, just the part where it distorts.
Great tip, thank you. Brian Dokko said that. Sorry, Brian. He also recommended using Handbrake, downloading Handbrake to convert video files. And I've used that a number of times, and Handbrake is a great free tool.
Oh, good to know. Handbrake.
Yeah. Go ahead, Brian.
No, I was just saying that it was free.
Oh, yeah. You cut out. Okay, any more questions? Jay, I personally am an Enneagram type 1, which means I like order and specific stuff. So having your exact list of everything to do has been a gift, a massive gift. So thank you so much for that. Drew is agreeing. I would love for you guys to all, if you could unmute and just say a big thank you to Jay and Brian. And we are finished. And I hope to see you all.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Is this audio going to be edited into a massive group thank you with video software?
That would actually be fun.
I'm kidding.
Also, that Google Doc with that order, are we going to get that as well too?
I believe
we got
Jay's.
a link to it earlier.
Oh, did it? Okay.
Yeah, it was before the session started. It was before the break in the last session.
Okay.
Yeah, and
so it was hard to see.
I'll put it up on a. I'll send it out in an email as well.
Thank you. Yes.
No problem. Thank you, everyone. It's been a pleasure. We sure hit home with our presenters today. They're spectacular.
Rochelle, can you send me a link to the PayPal thing or something?
Yeah, I have. I talked to our webmaster and figured out a solution, and I'll email you that in a little bit. I'm going to take a break, but you'll get it sometime today.
No rush. I just want you to know that I'm on that.
And so glad you joined us.
Thank you.
Me
You're
too.
Hi.
Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you so much. Hi, Ruth. We just finished for the day. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Has it been recorded?
Yes, and I will, once we figure out how to edit, I will get it out to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.